original recommendation, we took out the issue of political interference as one of our resolutions. So that brings the resolution back to 8. So that last resolution should read recommendations 1 to 8 instead of 1 to 9. Yes, sir.
Is it on the same thing? Okay, Secretariat, take note, please. Secretariat, take note. 681, 682. Senator Asmatadin.
Your Excellency, I rise to move that the Senate do approve the vote and proceeding of Wednesday, the 22nd of July, 2020. I so move, Mr. President.
Senator Clifford Odia.
Thank you, Mr. President, my very distinguished colleagues. I'm Senator Clifford Odia, representing Edo Central Senatorial District. I rise to second the motion that the votes and proceedings of Wednesday, the 2nd July 2020 be approved. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that the Senate approves the votes and proceedings of Wednesday, 22nd July 2020, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. The votes and proceedings of Wednesday, 22nd July 2020 is hereby approved. Today, the 23rd day of July, is the birthday of one of our Senate elders, the distinguished Senator Abdullah Adamu, the former governor of Nasarawa State, Tirakin Kefi. On behalf of the Senate, I wish the distinguished Senator Abdullah Adamu a happy birthday, long life, prosperity, and many more years of service to our fatherland. Also, there's an announcement on the new acting deputy clerk of the Senate. The new acting deputy clerk is Mrs. Iloba Ugochi, and where is she? Oh. Thank you. Congratulations, Madam. We wish you a very successful and peaceful tenure. Petitions. Leader of the Senate. Point of order, Senator Asmatadin.
Mr. President, I stand on the order of Order 4352. With your permission, can I read?
You may read.
Be referred to the President of the Senate before the commencement of the day's sitting, and the President of the Senate shall refuse to allow the claim unless he is satisfied that the matter is definite and urgent. If the claim is allowed by the President of the Senate and the leave of the Senate is given by at least 1/5 of all senators, the matter shall stand over the next legislative day. 52, Mr. President. Notice shall not be dispersed with in the case of a motion or in respect of any other matter proceeding for which notice is required except with the consent of the President of the Senate and the general assent of the senators present. Mr. President,
Give us a synopsis.
Flying Officer Tolulope Arotile, who died about a fortnight ago in Kaduna.
Okay, put the question. The single senator from Kogi West, former Comrade Sumata Demi, had approached me. Actually, this should have been a motion because it was in our order paper, but we couldn't take it. So he's asking the Senate to allow him to present his motion coming under orders 42 and 52, and that requires my approval as well as at least 1/5 of our colleagues here. So those in favor that we allow the single Senator Samat Adeyemi to present his motion, say aye. Aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Please present your motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. Note with grief the death of Flying Officer Tolulope Arotile on Tuesday, 14 July 2020, in an accident at the Nigerian Air Force Base, Kaduna, at the age of 24. Note, Mr. President, also, that Flying Officer Tolulope Arotile was winged as Nigeria's first female combat helicopter pilot at Nigerian Air Force Headquarters, Abuja, on the 15th of October 2019, after completing her flying training in South Africa. Flying Officer Arotile, who hailed from Ife in the Jumu local government area of Kogi State, was born on 13 December 1995 to the family of Mr. and Mrs. Akintunde Arotile in Kaduna. She attended Air Force Primary School, Kaduna from 2006 to 2011, and in September 2012, Mr. President, he gained admission into the Nigerian Defense Academy, Kaduna, where she was a member of the 64 regular course. Recall that Flying Officer Arotile, who was commissioned into the Nigerian Air Force as a pilot officer on the 16th September 2017, holds a Bachelor of Science in Mathematics from Nigerian Defense Academy. Recall also that Flying Officer Arotile underwent tactical flying training on the Agosta 109 power attack helicopter in Italy and holds a commercial pilot license. Recall further that on the 6th February this year, she introduced the Air Force newly acquired Agosta 109 power attack helicopter to the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Nigeria, President Muhammadu Buhari, during the induction ceremony at Eagle Square, Kaduna, Abuja. Note that she served the nation as a squadron pilot at the 405 Helicopter Combat Training Group Enugu, attached to Air Component of Operation Gamma Aiki in Mina, Niger State. Had recently completed her promotion examination and was awaiting her next deployment. Note also that as a participant in Gamma Aiki in Niger State, she flew her quota of anti-banditry combat mission to ensure a safer and more secure Nigeria, and that before her untimely death, she made significant outstanding contributions to the war against terrorism, armed banditry, and other forms of criminality in the country. Aware that Flying Officer Tolulope Arotile, in her words, I joined the military simply out of passion for it. Being a military personnel, it has been a long ambition. The courage and what it stands for are simply exceptional, unquote. Aware also that Flying Officer Tolulope Arotile possessed deft skill as a combat helicopter pilot and truly earned the accolade from the Chief of Army Staff, Air Marshal Sadiq Abubakar, who described her as a very intelligent, disciplined, confident, and courageous young officer who added value wherever she served. Mr. President, convinced that the late Flying Officer Tolulope Arotile was a shining young star in the Nigerian Air Force combat flying mission, and her sad demise has reduced the ranks of the Air Force female pilots to 6. Those serve to be immortalized in the Nigerian history. She was the first combatant helicopter pilot, and indeed the first in Africa. Accordingly, Mr. President, the Senate should resolve to observe a minute silence in honor of Flying Officer Tolulope Arotile and condole with her family, the Nigerian Air Force, the governor of Kogi State, Governor Yaya Adoza Bello, and indeed President Muhammadu Buhari. Mr. President, I equally added that the Nigerian Air Force should name an edifice or establish an institution of learning relating to our profession in our local government in Ijimu in Kogi State. I so submit, Mr. President.
Senator Isaac.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I am Issa Jibrin, representing Kogi East. I rise to support the motion very heavily moved by my senior colleague, Senator Smart Adeyemi. Ms. Tolulope is was one of the illustrious daughters of Kogi State, who unfortunately has been brought down in her prime. I want to urge the Nigerian Air Force to undertake a full-scale investigation on what really happened that led to the demise of this young lady within the Air Force quarters. To me, there may be more to it. But at the end of the day, the investigation will unravel everything. Meanwhile, apart from the standard normal benefits that are normally paid or that are payable to officers in her category who die in the course of their duty, I want to urge the federal government to try and provide succor to the immediate family of this young lady. Thank you very much.
Distinguished colleagues, will go to the prayers. Prayer 1, observe a minute silence in honor of Flying Officer Tolulope Arotile. Those in favor of this prayer say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Prayer 2, condole with our family, the Nigerian Air Force, and the Governor, His Excellency Yahya Bello, and the people of Kogi State. I think the Governor of Kogi State, His Excellency Alhaji Yahya Bello, and the people of Kogi State. Those in favor of this prayer say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. 1 minute silence. May the gentle soul of late flying officer Tolu Lope Aretule rest in perfect peace. Amen. Leader of the Senate.
Point of order.
Point of order, Senator Yusuf Abubakar Yusuf.
Thank you, Mr. President. I come by order 42 and 52. May I read?
Yeah, you may read.
The matter for discussion shall, if possible, be referred to the President of the Senate before commencement of the day sitting, and the President of the Senate shall refuse to allow the claim unless he is satisfied that the matter is definite and urgent. If the claim is allowed by the President of the Senate and the leave of the Senate is given by at least 1/5 of the senators, the matter shall stand over till the next legislative day. Not more than one of such motion may be made at the same sitting. Order 52. Notice shall not be dispensed with in the case of a motion or in respect of any other proceedings for which notice is required except by the consent of the President of the Senate and the general assent of the senators present.
What have you given the synopsis? You may give the synopsis.
Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, this motion is very, very urgent, considering the fact that the people of Mambila Plateau are going to be cut off from the rest of the country because of the bad road that has happened. The road is so bad that if urgent steps are not taken, the people of Mambila are going to be cut off from the rest of Nigeria, and it is going to affect the fortune of developing the Mambila hydroelectricity power. So as a result of that, I raise this motion for consideration of the Senate. Thank you, Mr. President. These are the synopsis.
Thank you very much. Because you have come under orders 42 and 52, I will have to put the question for our colleagues to approve of that. So those in favor of the motion by our colleague that we allow him to take his motion today and now, say aye. Those against say nay, the ayes have it. You may move your motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. Urgent need for the reconstruction of the portion of Bali Gashaka Gembu Road in Taraba State. Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, note that the Bali Gashaka Gembu Road in Taraba State is a federal road that traverses the Gumti National Park, Mambila Hydropower Project, and a major link between Nigeria and neighboring Republic of Cameroon, as well as other Central African countries. Further note that the strategic importance of Bali Gashaka Gembu Road to the economy of Taraba State in particular and the country in general cannot be underestimated, as the road enables farmers, cattle rearers to transport their products to market, as well as other businesses, engagement in other parts of the country. The road is also enhances economic activities between Nigeria and the Republic of Cameroon, as well as other African countries. The Senate, aware that Taraba State government, despite its weak financial capability, awarded the reconstruction of the road from Jalingo to Gembu to PW Construction Company. The construction work could not reach Gembu, but terminated at Goje, near Mao Selbe. From Mao Selbe to Gembu was not constructed. Worried that the portion of the road from Goje to Gembu which is about 127 kilometers, have now become death traps, resulting to loss of lives, goods and services worth millions of naira on a daily basis, as well as frequent accidents on bad portions of the road. Senate further worried that the bad portion of the road that cause accidents frequently, if not constructed, will soon be cut off, thereby crippling the connectivity in the affected local government area and by extension, the neighboring Republic of Cameroon. The Senate, cognizance of the fact that this road houses the Mambila hydropower project, when constructed, will facilitate, enhances the construction of hydropower projects. The Senate therefore resolves to urge the Federal Ministry of Works and Housing to urgently reconstruct the road from Goje via Selbe to Gembu to prevent the road from being washed away by heavy downpour and landslides being experienced in the area. 2, or direct FEMA to urgently rehabilitate the portion of the road. 3, the Senate Committee on Works and Appropriation to ensure that the inclusion of the reconstruction of Goje via Selbe Road to Gembu with culvert and erosion control so as to divert running water from the damaging road. 4, Northeast Development Commission to further intervene. Number 5, because of the degradation of the ecology of that place, Ecological Management Fund considered the ecological challenge along the Selbe-Maisamari erosion. Finally, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, Federal Ministry of Power to emphasize the importance of this road of the Mambila Hydro project to the Federal Executive Council. I so move.
The Deputy Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Very distinguished colleagues, I am Senator Boacha Emmanuel. I represent Taraba South. Mr. President, I rise to second this motion on the strength of the benefit associated with the prayers, if granted by this Senate. As said by the sponsor of the motion, Mambila Plateau holds one of the significant keys to the development of our national economy by virtue of the Mambila hydropower project. And like he said, the road leading to Mambila was actually awarded by Governor Sunte, the late Governor Sunte. I didn't quite reach Mambila. And the meandering nature of the road is such that if there is a cut in the road, there will be a total isolation of that region. And that will be dangerous for the project the federal government has set forth to undertake in Mambila. And Mr. President, we need not to be reminded that the Mambila project is one project that cannot be toyed with because, like I said, because of the significant role it has to play in developing Nigeria's national economy. And I want to add that it has the highest, outside of the power project, Mambila has the highest cattle heads in the country. And so it has a strategic placement in our national economy. So, Mr. President, I second this motion and I call on our colleagues to do same and grant the prayers as proposed by the sponsor of the motion. I so second, Mr. President.
This one, colleagues, will go to the prayers. Senate resolves to urge the Federal Minister of Works and Housing to urgently reconstruct the road from Goji via Mayo Selbe to Gembu to prevent the road from being washed away by heavy downpour and landslide being experienced in the area. Those in favor of this prayer say aye. Those against any say no. Prayer 2, or direct FEMA to urgently rehabilitate the portion of the road. Those in favor of prayer 2 say aye. Those against, any the ayes have it. Prayer 3, Senate Committee on Works and Appropriation to ensure the inclusion of the reconstruction of Goje via Mayo Selby to Gembu Road, about 127 kilometers with culvert and erosion control, so as to divert running water from damaging the road. Those in prayer 3 say aye. Those against, say nay. Prayer 4, North-East Development Commission intervention. What does that mean? You just say North-East Development Commission intervention.
Mr. President, the Northeast Development Commission has an intervention, capacity in the areas in the Northeast. So we believe they will also have a role since they have an inroad into the Mambila Hydro project as well. So that is why the road is so important.
So are they meant to also construct the road? Okay. But do they have the capacity to start constructing the road? I know you are the chairman, so you know better what they can do and what they cannot. Okay. Those who have prayer 4 say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Prayer 5, Ecological Management Fund consider the ecological challenge along the Mayo Salbe Samari erosion. Those who have prayer 5 say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. And prayer 6, Federal Minister of Power to emphasize the importance of this road to the Mambila Hydropower Project. Those who have prayer 6 say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the first business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of Gershom Bassett on the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Alteration Bill 2020. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Alteration Bill 2020, SB 489, first reading.
1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Alteration Bill 2020, SB 489, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the second business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of Senator Adaeze Stella Odua on the Federal Scholarship Board Establishment etc. Bill 2020. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Federal Scholarship Board Establishment, etc. Bill 2020, SB 491, first reading.
Federal Scholarship Board Establishment, etc. Bill 2020, SB 491, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the fourth business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of Senator Sani Mohammed Musa on the Loan Recovery Regulations Bill 2020. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Loan Recovery Regulation Bill 2020, SB 492, first reading.
Loan Recovery Regulations Bill 2020, SB 492, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the fourth business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of Senator Ifeanyi Uba on the National Center for Sickle Cell Anemia Research and Treatment, Agwata, Establishment etc. Bill 2020. Mr. President, we may wish to invite the Clerk of Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, National Center for Sickle Cell Anemia Research and Treatment, Aguta, Establishment, etc. Bill 2020, SB 493, first reading.
National Center for Sickle Cell Anemia Research and Treatment, Aguata, Establishment, etc. Bill 2020, SB 493, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the first business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of Senator Ibikunle Amosu on the National Hospital for Women and Children Act Amendment Bill 2020. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, National Hospital for Women and Children Abuja Act, Amendment Bill 2020, SB 494, first reading.
National Hospital for Women and Children Abuja Act Amendment Bill 2020, SB 494, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Thank you, Mr. President. The sixth business of the day is the presentation of the report of the Committee on Public Accounts on the Part 2 of the annual report of the Auditor General for the Federation on the accounts of the Federation of Nigeria for year ended 31st December 2015. Mr. President, you may wish to invite Senator Urogide Matthew, Chairman of the committee, to move the motion for the Senate to receive the report.
Senator Matthew Urogide.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I'm Senator Matthew Urogide. I represent Edo South Senatorial District. Mr. President, I rise to move that the Senate do receive the report of the Committee on Public Accounts on the Part 2 of the annual report of the Auditor General for the Federation on the account of the Federation of Nigeria for the year ended 31st December 2015. I so move.
I need a seconder. Yes, Senator Ibrahim Hassan Hadeja, Vice Chairman.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Ibrahim Hassan Hadeja, Jigawa Northeast. I rise to support the motion ably moved by Senator Matthew Urogide that the reports on the Public Accounts Committee be received by the Senate. I so second.
Thank you very much. Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that the Senate do receive the report of the Public Accounts Committee say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Chairman, you may lead the report, please. Leader of the Senate.
Thank you, Mr. President. My highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the seventh business of the day is the presentation of the report of the Committee on Environment on the internally generated revenue and budget expenditure for the year 2020 of National Environmental and Regulations Enforcement Agency. Order. Mr. President, you may wish to invite Senator Betty Apiafi. Order. Mr. President, you may wish to invite Senator Betty Apiafi to present on behalf of Senator Ike Ekramadu. Yeah. Is he here? He's around. Oh, he's around. Okay. Mr. President, you may wish to invite Senator Ike Ekramadu, Chairman of the committee, to move the motion for the Senate to receive the report.
Distinguished Senator Ike Ekweremadu, the former DSP.
Thank you, Mr. President. Very distinguished colleagues. Ike Ekweremadu, Enugu West. I respectfully move that this distinguished Senate do receive the report of the Committee on Environment on internally generated revenue and budget expenditure for the year 2020 of the National Environmental and Regulations Enforcement Agency, Niger. I so move.
Senator Betty Apiafi.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, my name is Betty Apiafi. I represent Rivers West Senatorial District. I rise to support the motion as moved by the Chairman, Committee on Environment, also second.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that the Senate do receive the report of our Committee on Environment, say aye. Those against, any ayes have it. Chairman, you may lead the report. Senator Adiola Solomon, please stop disturbing Senator Matthew Orogire. Thank you. Leader of the Senate.
Thank you, Mr. President. My highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the only order of the day is the presentation and consideration of the report of the ad hoc committee on the investigation of the alleged financial recklessness in the Niger Delta Development Commission, NDDC. Mr. President, you may wish to invite Senator Ayodeji Olubunbi Adetumbi, Chairman of the committee, to move the motion for the Senate to receive and consider the report.
Senator Olubunbi Adetumbi.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Senator Olubunbi Adetumbi, representing Ekiti North. I rise to move the motion that the Senate do receive and consider the report of the ad hoc committee on investigation of the alleged financial recklessness in the Niger Delta Development Commission. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I so move.
Senator Basi Albert Akpan.
Thank you, the Capacity Senate President of Nigeria, distinguished colleagues. The President, I rise to second the motion ably moved by the Chairman ad hoc committee that the Senate do receive and consider the report of the ad hoc committee on investigation of alleged financial recklessness in the Niger Delta Development Commission. I so second, Mr. President.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that the Senate receives and considers the report of our ad hoc committee on investigation of the alleged financial recklessness in the Niger Delta Development Commission, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. You may lead the report. you may present the report now.
Honorable members, I've examined and approved the votes and proceedings of Tuesday, 21st of July, 2020. Honorable colleagues, as we are all aware, the father of colleague Honorable Yusuf Adamu Gagdi Excuse me, Honorable Sejus, please. We're in session. The father of Honorable Yusuf Adamu Gagdi, Chairman House Committee on Navy and member representing Pangshin Kanki in Plateau State, died on the 17th of July 2020 in Jos Plateau State. He has since been buried according to Islamic rites. May his soul rest in peace. So let's stand for 1 minute silence, please. May his soul rest in peace. Honorable colleagues, last Monday, in a dramatic twist at the public hearing NDDC, the Honorable Minister made very weighty allegations on the National Assembly, specifically the House, stating categorically that 60% of NDDC contracts were awarded to members of this House. Last Tuesday, I issued a 48-hour ultimatum to the Minister of Niger Delta Affairs to substantiate his allegation that over 60% of contracts awarded by the Niger Delta Development Commission went to members of the National Assembly. I said then that the Honorable Minister owed it to himself, to NDDC, to the Niger Delta, and to the country to provide evidence to support these very serious allegations. The Honorable Minister has failed to respond to my request. Therefore, I must conclude that his statement intended solely to gaslight the nation to avoid accountability for the evident maladministration and malfeasance in the Niger Delta Development Corporation. In my time in the House of Representatives, I have held every conceivable leadership position, from minority whip to minority leader, to leader of the House, and now the Speaker of the House. I recognize that the House has not always lived up to the high expectations of the Nigerian people. As much as we still have a lot to do in that regard, I refuse to sit here in good conscience and allow anyone to assassinate the character of the House in an attempt to deflect accountability for their conduct in office. Such mendacity, as was witnessed in the public hearing, will not be tolerated from anybody, no matter how highly placed. This morning, I've asked the Clerk of the House of Representatives to engage the services of legal counsel and instruct them to initiate a criminal complaint of perjury against the minister. At the same time, we will instruct counsel to explore the possibility of a civil defamation suit against the minister. The House of Representatives is a public trust placed in our care for the duration of our term in office. We must prove ourselves worthy of the public trust or risk the censure of history. Therefore, we will resist every attempt to undermine this institution, whether such attempt comes from within or from outside. This House will live up to the highest expectations of the Nigerian people, and this is our commitment, and we will not fail. Thank you. God bless. Yes, honorable colleagues. The MTF was read on the letter from the President on the delivery of the MTF to the House was read Tuesday. I referred it to the Committee on Finance, but to the avoidance of doubt, I am reiterating that matter. The MTF is now once again referred to the Committee on Finance. I believe I'm guided by the clerk that it is not something by tradition that we debate on the floor of the House. Any petition? And Henry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, my dear colleagues. I am Henry Walker, and I speak for the enterprising people of Intolu Kedu Federal Constituency of Imo State. Mr. Speaker, my dear colleagues, before me this morning, I've received a petition from the Imo State chapter of the Niger Delta Youth Movement against alleged 15 million naira COVID-19 palliative fund meant for Imo State youth and intentional deprivation of other rights and privileges by the NDDC against the Imo State youth. With your leave, I seek permission to lay this petition. Thank you.
Any other petition? Okay, Toby.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable colleagues, my name is Toby Ochukwu. I represent an area of Wetiri Federal Constituency from Enugu State. Mr. Speaker, this is a petition from my constituent who has been untowardly, unlawfully, and irregularly removed. Has come to the House to seek redress on my colleagues and Mr. Speaker to please allow me to lay the petition.
Yes, sir. Please lay your petition. Any other petition?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chairman.
Honorable colleagues, my name is Honorable Ifeanyi Chukwudi Moma. I represent the people of Idiala Federal Constituency. I'm from Anambra State. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, petition I have is from one Mr. Awo Sunday Theodore, a 300 level student, petition against the Inspector General of Police on his unlawful arrest and detention over a murder case. Even when the real culprit has been apprehended, he still remains illegally in detention. If it may please this House, I wish to lay the petition.
Lay your petition. Any other petition? On this row? Okay, who's that? I'm there. Okay.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker, my honorable colleagues. My name is Honorable Haruna Isadede, and I represent Arairo Federal Constituency from Kano State. Mr. Speaker, I have a petition against the office of the Chief of Naval Staff in respect of unauthorized seizure and use of property belonging to Mr. Minor Jack. This petition, Mr. Speaker, has been brought forward through the law firm of Mrs. Emaki Ororo Chambers. I seek your leave and the leave of the House, Mr. Speaker, to lay the petition.
Please go ahead. Any other petition? All right, so we'll move on. Honorable, all matters referred to the Committee on Public Petitions. Honorable Tolu Shadikwe.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. May I be allowed to stand on Order 824 to request a suspension of the rule of the House to allow me to present a motion of urgent public importance for parliamentary intervention to eradicate trafficking in persons and the resultant immunization of Nigerians abroad and the repatriation of our Tanzanian citizens.
Seconder.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My name is Jima Rahim Olaji. I represent Lagos, Maryland, Federal Constituency, Lagos State. I stand to second the motion as moved by honorable colleague, Honorable Shashati. Thank you.
This is a PCI. Let's get the same name.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There's a requirement for parliamentary intervention to eradicate trafficking in persons, the resultant dehumanizing treatment of Nigerians abroad, and the repatriation of our Tanzanian citizens. The House knows the unprecedented rise in the abuse and dehumanization of Nigerians, even in nations with long history of cordial relations with Nigeria. The current and ongoing study dehumanizing treatment foisted on Nigerians abroad particularly traffic girls under the cover of foreign domestic staff, has become very, very disturbing. According to the National Agency for the Protection of Trafficking in Persons, NAPTI, in the past 1 year, there has been at least 500 distress calls daily from Nigerian women crying for rescue and a means to return home due to the inhumane conditions they face in various parts of the Middle East, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Qatar, United Arab Emirates, Egypt, Oman, and Lebanon, as well as Mali, with Lebanon, Oman, and Mali being top on the list. Further note that Lebanon has been ranked one of the top 5 countries where young Nigerian girls are deceived out of Nigeria, only to end up in homes and businesses in inhumane circumstances. Thousands of Nigerian girls and women are lured each year to work as domestic workers across the Middle East, with majority suffering physical, mental, and sexual abuse, and no recourse to go back home as their passports are seized upon their arrival in these countries. Many of these girls have gone without pay for months, and some have even lost their lives. Recently, of the 22 returnees, one had left Nigeria as an able-bodied woman, but returned in excruciating pain, wheelchair-bound, unable to walk. Recall the cases of Nigerian girls sold into slavery in Lebanon and Oman. One of such was earlier in the year, Omolola Ajayi, who was put on sale for $1,000 by Wahid Jero, a Lebanese national. Another case is that of Gloria Taye Bright, who was said to have been recruited to teach English language, only for her to return to a domestic servant on arrival in Lebanon. Both Omolola and Gloria were reported to have been trafficked out of the country by Mr. Wafik Mohammed Hamzi, a Lebanese national, apprehended for human trafficking by NAPTI, currently in Ilorin, Kwara State, on trial. Records show that Wafik Hamza was complicit in the trafficking of 16 girls, 10 of which have been repatriated back to Nigeria by IOM, while 6 remain stranded in Lebanon. Hamzi is currently in custody in Ilorin, awaiting trial for trafficking. But it appears that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, under the guise of diplomacy, is working for the release of the sex trafficker without any regard for our citizens' losses or their repatriation back home. The names of the 16 girls are as follows. May I be allowed to list the name or move on? Okay. Further recall, the case of Senator Kariwolo, age 31, who recently returned to Nigeria after the joint collaboration and intervention of the Diaspora Committee, NAPTI, and the Diaspora Commission, after being maltreated and falsely accused of attempted murder. Her bloody image circulated on social media in April after a dispute with her employer due to her refusal of her employer's sexual advances and harassment. Temitope was initially prevented from being repatriated back to Nigeria and was charged for attempted murder, but due to the intervention of stakeholders, legislative and executive, and the International Organization for Migration, IOM, who provided legal representation, trauma, and unpaid wages, were held in intense work service, but to date, not. In summary, records against national embarrassment has refused to honor for signing an international recruitment license and respect and contempt for the community and human trafficking and decriminalization.
We had to underscore in our public hearing that this exercise is a legitimate responsibility of the Parliament to make sure that agencies of government are prudently utilizing resources appropriated to them and also delivering on the dividends that they are supposed to provide. And we made it very clear that this exercise is not an exercise at witch hunting or to blame gaming, but to make sure that the NDDC money work for the people of the Niger Delta. On the basis of which, distinguished colleagues, I go to page 110, and as I go through these recommendations, the first recommendation is that the committee is of the opinion that a reconsideration of the executive oversight of the NDDC needs to be examined. And for purposes of consistency and equality of policy, there's need to review the inconsistencies and different in apex control of these development commissions. We believe that the NDDC should be reconsidered to report directly to the presidency as it used to be, rather than allow it to be managed from other sources. We said that the absence of a board of directors at NDDC created a major lacuna of oversight, which the Ministry of Niger Delta could not fill, and provides a culpable neglect of supervision and could not function effectively as a board would have done, because ministries are known for policies while agencies are known for operations under a governance system that is established by law. Inauguration of other accountability mechanisms. This is the need, not just to stop at the institution of the board, but the monitoring committee and the advisory committee should also be concurrently implemented, so that there are multiple layers of oversight in order to ensure that the money of this agency work for the people of the region. Mr. President, improvement of governance process is there. These are recommendations basically for institution, upgrading of the institution. On the financial accountability and framework review, we found out that restoration of a budget-led system will help the Niger Delta Commission to do a better job of service delivery. The practice of spending without a framework of a budget and a plan against which expenditure is being made is not helpful to the NDDC, and no wonder we are not surprised that the 81 billion or so that was spent between October and now is not really development oriented. And that is why we think that the performance of budget procedure reform is
the House of Representatives and provide immigration service and the National Agency for the Prevention of the
unanimous, and it will not be subject to controversy or compromise. Mr. President, we believe that the strengthening of the procurement process is very, very crucial, because you can have a lot of money coming into an organization if the exit gate in terms of projects and procurement is not well managed by procedures and processes and oversight to ensure effectiveness. We are going to likely suffer the kind of hemorrhage that is taking place in the NDDC. We found out that in a lot of cases where unjustifiable payments were made to staff of the NDDC, they should be made to refund these monies, because what is good for the goose is good for the gander. In the case, for example, COVID relief 19, the agency spent 1.49 billion in payments, various payments to members of staff in various categories, ranging from 10 million to 600,000 naira per individual staff. And this is on record. It's there. 10 million to 600,000 per staff. And the total amount for 1,400 and so staff boils down to 1.4 billion. These kind of payments, we believe, should be refunded by the management of the IMC, and such refund should go into the NDDC account, not the Federation account. That was an error on the part of the committee. It is the money should go back into the account of the NDDC and not into the Federation account. Please correct that on your paper. Mr. President, there are serious process challenges in the NDDC, institutional challenges in the NDDC, and Chapter 6.4 of this recommendation has recommended a review of operation processes, a review of financial and accounting processes, review of human policy, instituting a performance-based organization, and the enhancement of internal and external audit capacities. But all these internal review processes is best done under a formally constituted board and management with the operationalization of the accountability mechanisms in terms of the monitoring committee and the advisory council. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, last but not the least is the need to review the corporate social responsibility policy of the NDDC. A lot of money has been spent on condolences, stakeholders engagement, community interventions. A good example is 2 or 3 staff take some huge sum of money and they call it.
Okay. Honorable Priya.
Okay. Right Honorable Speaker, honorable colleagues, I rise under Order 8, Rule 4, to move a motion of urgent national importance on the urgent need to urge the federal government to appoint a substantive coordinator for the Presidential Amnesty Program for the Niger Delta region. I so move.
Seconder.
Thank you, Mr. Thank you. Who's this one? Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Musa Mohammed Padi is my name. Member representing Al-Kaleri Kirbi. I am from Bauchi State. I stand to second the motion ably moved by my honorable colleague. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, I rise to move a motion of national importance on the urgent need to appoint a substantive coordinator for the Presidential Amnesty Program for the Niger Delta. The House notes that on Friday, the 25th of June, 2009, the federal government took a decisive step in the nation's avowed commitment to bringing enduring peace, security, stability, and development to the Niger Delta region. Also notes that by that declaration, Nigeria demonstrated an unwavering commitment to evolving a holistic solution to the problems of the Niger Delta with a view to securing the region for growth and development, while also effectively tackling the criminal dimensions to the problem. Also note that the main objective of the Presidential Amnesty Program was to disarm, demobilize, reintegrate armed agitators back into the communities with benefits such as opportunities in education, as well as financial stipend to those who give up their arms. Worried that the Presidential Amnesty Program that has been able to achieve ultimate objectives of reintegrating all agitators as originally envisioned, further notes that the absence of a substantive coordinator for the program is creating a vacuum that makes it difficult for the program to be managed meaningfully, transparently, and brought to a logical end. Concerned that since February 28, 2020, the erstwhile coordinator of the Presidential Amnesty Program, Professor Charles Koka Dokobo, was suspended from office by the President. Aware that the suspension of the said coordinator was on the heels of numerous allegations and petitions surrounding the Presidential Amnesty Program, which prompted the National Security Advisor to set up a technical committee to look into the activities of the program. Cognizant that the presidential amnesty program's inability to meet its mandate has culminated.
Niger Delta is a very important zone to this country. That is the bedrock of our wealth as a nation. You recall in the 7th Senate when we went on tour of Niger Delta, we saw people living in abject poverty. I can compare that situation with what I saw in Soweto in South Africa. Therefore, I held the view that having a commission like this will improve the well-being of the people. More importantly, when you have people of that zone who are managing the affairs of the commission, which was entrusted to them to improve the well-being of their people. Mr. President, there's no need to pretend about this. This is a deliberate attempt to put the people of Niger Delta in perpetual slavery and penury. Mr. President, from what we have seen of this report, you don't need to be an accountant to know when people have managed public funds. Mr. President, this is one report that must not die. And I take a look at our nation. We all claim to be Christians and Muslims. We believe in the Bible, we believe in the Quran. But when you look at this kind of a report, you feel very bad. Why are we here? We are here to add value to our nation. Mr. President, in the Bible there's what they call Mosaic law, which in the Quran they call Sharia law. The level of corruption in Nigeria today is beyond these laws that we have. We have about 14 substantive laws of parliament against corruption. But corruption, it was the matter of anti-corruption was the matter of our government. And today we are fighting corruption, but corruption is still expanding. So what's the solution, Mr. President? We have to introduce either Mosaic law or Sharia law. Amputation, life imprisonment. Let us look at the law when we come back. Set up mechanized agriculture in this country, in every state of Nigeria. The minimum is life imprisonment or amputation. That is the solution to corruption in Nigeria. We have large army of youth today, they have no job, we are not safe, our family are not safe, and some people are given the responsibility of managing the zone. And look at what they are doing. 3.2 billion for medicals. I mean, you can't explain it, Mr. President. This is terrible. And I'm happy that those who are charged with this responsibility are people of Niger Delta. There's no Northern Nigeria or people of Southwest. So you expect them to be extremely patriotic and committed to the welfare of their people. It is painful to see Niger Delta people in penury, and you get the responsibility. Over ₦1 trillion went down the drain. Who are you going to hold responsible? Would you say President Buhari has not been fair and just? 81 billion in 6 months, and there's nothing to show for it? Mr. President, this is one of the most terrible crimes anybody can do to a generation. People have been entrusted to improve the welfare of their people, to improve the life of their people. They now add that to their problem and put them in abject poverty and penury and enslavement. This is one report that the president must act as fast as he can. Because the matter of President Muhammadu Buhari is to fight corruption. People are dying in this country for 20,000, 50,000 in Niger Delta. People are dying for 30,000 naira. And the man is mismanaged billions of naira. The money that we use to maintain their dogs, human beings cannot have a quarter of that money of maintaining dogs to feed. We must change the laws. Life imprisonment the minimum. Amputation is the next thing in Nigeria. If you want corruption to die, gentlemen, we are here to add value to our nation. Let us not pretend about it. If you don't want people to push into corruption, and we don't want to be encouraged into corruption, we must put those laws that everybody will be afraid of. We must change the laws. Amputation, minimum.
The Distinguished Senator Samantha, they must stay within your boundaries. Don't move to that.
Mr. President, let me just thank you. This report is painful because for those of us, Mr. President, who have been in the struggle for the emancipation of the people, we hold the view that Mr. President.
Now I better protect you from yourself.
Mr. President, on a very serious note, Mr. President, under your leadership, under President Muhammadu Buhari, if we cannot stop, minimize corruption, then this country has no future. That is the truth. President Muhammadu Buhari was seen by Nigerians as the saint that was coming to fight corruption. We have a responsibility to support him. Let us change the laws. Amputation, life imprisonment, minimum punishment in Nigeria. Call it Sharia law, call it Mosaic law. If we don't do that, Mr. President, of course there are temptations of corruption in Nigeria. But when you know the implication of what they're pushing into, you don't get involved. Let us help this country. Let this report be a turning point in the history of our nation. Let it be the turning point that generations to come will say there was a group of people who changed the face of Nigeria. If we want to have security in Nigeria, if we want development of our facilities, we must fight corruption. Assalamu alaikum.
Senator Adiola Salaman Olamidoku.
Thank you, Mr. President. Very distinguished colleague. I must start by commending the chairman and the entire members of this ad hoc committee who have done a thorough job, a very solid job in terms of doing a great service to this nation. Mr. President, distinguished colleague, we have watched on live TVs what has been going on as far as NDDC is concerned. We have seen corruption being displayed at the highest level. Integrities of individuals have been put to test. As my brother Senator Smart Adeyemi has said, the mantra of this administration is to fight corruption. But what do we have? We have corruption fighting back. 4.5 billion was spent in a day in NDDC. 4.5 billion. And the most astonishing part of this is that the expenditure upon which this fund is predicated are frivolous in nature. And that goes to show that it's a huge amount of money coming from the oil companies to NDDC, coming from the federal government from NDDC, coming from the derivation account to NDDC, rolling to several billions of naira. And I'm made to understand that what comes from the petroleum companies are in dollars. At a point in time, there was a reconciliation that was done. No, I want to show we are still. There was a reconciliation that was done. That has to do with amount that was paid by the oil companies, amount that was received by NDDC, and amount due that must be remitted by these oil companies. And after the whole reconciliation, the petroleum company decided to pay the difference, which is in millions of dollars. I don't know if this is contained in this report. Mr. President, there is no game saying about it. There is need for us to reposition the board. I don't know, maybe the committee mentioned about the law establishing the board itself. If there is urgent need for us to revisit the law, to re-examine the law, because that is the first step we must take as a parliament. We are the one that passed the law establishing NDDC. So if there is any action that we can take that can be drastic in nature, is for us to revisit the law establishing NDDC as a matter of urgency. Because with these laws, we can put in place all observations that will have been raised, ranging from one, the master plan of NDDC. What do we want for NDDC? How do we want NDDC to function as an agency? All of these, we can put it in the law. The financial processes, the operational processes that have been mentioned by the committee, all these, we can put it in the law. And I believe if that law can be amended, and all the observations raised by the committee can be put in that law.
Then the good people of our nation should be federal concerns. I'm from Delta State. The House notes that the Northeast Development Commission bill was signed into law in October 2017 by President Muhammadu Buhari to replace other initiatives such as the Presidential Initiative on Northeast and Victim Support Fund, and the Board of Management was inaugurated in May 2019. Further notes that the Commission was established with a mission of coordinating funds accruing from the Federation account and donor agencies for the purposes of rehabilitating and resettling of victims of insurgency, reconstruction of homes, infrastructural development, and tackling of illiteracy in the northeastern part of the country. Aware that there has been massive displacement of Nigerian citizens in the northeast as a result of the activities of Boko Haram insurgents, where houses, schools, mosques, churches, farmlands, and businesses were destroyed, thereby rendering people homeless and jobless. Further aware that Northeast Development Commission, which was set up to ameliorate the suffering of the people and alleged to be immersed in serious corrupt practices by the management, concerned that the corrupt practices include the high-handedness by the managing director over inflation of contracts and awards of non-existent contracts, massive contract splitting, and flagrant disregard for the procurement laws in the award of the contracts. Further concerned that the 100 billion so far disbursed to the Commission by the federal government is said to have vanished under a year without any visible impact on the refugees nor any infrastructural development credited to the name of the Commission in the whole of the Northeast. Worried that there are allegations of how the MD and his close associates diverted the funds meant for the Commission to the purchasing of choice properties in highbrow neighborhoods of Abuja, Kaduna, and Maiduguri, to the detriment of the suffering refugees and infrastructural development. Further worried that there are allegations of how also the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Disaster Management was said to have entered into an unholy deal with the MD of the Commission to illegally withdraw the sum of 5 billion from the account of the Commission to purchase military vehicles without any recourse to the board on acts which completely disregard the country's procurement laws and must be seriously disturbed that though the managing director single-handedly procured all COVID-19 materials and supplies to the tune of 5 billion without an approval from the board, there is said to be another massive corruption scheme on the verge of being implemented in the name of housing scheme without the board's knowledge. Further disturbed that this consistent abuse of procurement laws, if not put in check, may defeat the purpose of the establishment of the Commission, hence the need for an urgent investigation. They have therefore resolved to mandate the House Committee on Finance and Niger Northeast Development Commission to exhaustively investigate these allegations and report back to the House within 8 weeks, as so submit.
All right.
For close to 3 hours, Mafa and Senator Alashadura and Senator Geshom Bassi. Mr. President, it beats your imagination that the air that they breathe in this area is different from what we breathe in Abuja or any other community. They live in squalors, no access to electricity, nothing. And here we are, you find a commission spending 1.something trillion in 3 or 4 years on lesser fever and all kinds of dubious and spurious transactions. Mr. President, my challenge is, I'm happy that the president has said that he's waiting for a report of investigation. This will be the first test of the president if he's sincere with the fight against corruption, which I know that he's very, very sincere. It is good to call a spade a spade. Mr. President, if you had watched the public hearing a few days ago, with the kind of contents in this report, why wouldn't the man faint? Why would the man faint? With the kind of contents in this report, the man was just asked, why did you pay 1.5 billion on palliative to staff? Staff that were at home doing nothing. He said, no, it's not 1.5. It is only 1.3. What is the difference between 1.3 and 1.5? And that you have to pay yourself first before you pay others. And I will sit down and oversight NDC and this is happening. It's not possible, Mr. President. Mr. President, I believe that as a Niger Delta, I don't believe that all hope is lost. It is good to do the right thing, no matter how late it is, than not to do anything at all. Posterity, I believe, will be fair to you if the right thing gets done now. Mr. President, if you look at the content of this report, nobody can fault its contents. Nobody can fault its contents. The only issue I have with this recommendation is that it is not as strong as it should be. If you are saying someone should refund money, it should be so clearly stated. And Senator Solomon has said something here. Mr. President, if we had allowed people to use their discretion in running NDDC the way they have run it down and out of purpose, then a time has come where we can also use the strength of the law to streamline the workings of NDDC. Nobody has talked about the master plan of Niger Delta. Nobody talks about it. I know when the last MD of Nsimaike came on screening, he was blabbing about master plan. But here we are. Once they are cleared from here, the next thing is they do whatever they like. When you sit down and you drive contract of 2,000 pieces of contract at 49 million naira, and then it's so gone. Mr. President, we must also blame the National Assembly. We must also blame ourselves, because this is a clear case of lack of oversight. This is a clear case of lack of oversight, Mr. President. So we must also place some level of responsibility on the National Assembly. We have not done well as regards oversighting this agency. It is good to call a spade a spade. Mr. President, finally, Mr. President, I believe very strongly that the Speaker 2-3 days ago had said, listen, there was an accusation on the public hearing at the House of Assembly, at the House of Representatives. As the Senate, we must align ourselves with the position of the House of Representatives. The story out there is that this is National Assembly that does all the contracts in NDC. The story out there is that we are the one that delays the budget. Which is
the first lawyer in Ogodi land, who by this status knows the implication of police invitation that was not served before invading her residence. The House is worried that the intention of the personnel of the police invading Dr. Joe Nunes' residence need to be investigated, as they have failed to apply international best practices, as well as the Professional Act and the crude display of force. The House notes that the Police Act 2018, Part 5, Clause 33, notification of clause of arrest and right of suspect to be informed of the cause or need for arrest through an invitation which was not adhered to. The House is cognizant of the fact that it was alleged that the purported arrest was an attempt by the police to sabotage the course of investigation. This was to prevent her from traveling from Port Harcourt to Abuja to testify before the House of Representative Committee on NDDC. The House is concerned as an institution of government. When matters are before both houses of National Assembly, every organ of government should allow legislative action to be completed.
Silence, please. Honorable Ihembe, come and sit. Honorable Ihembe.
Let me take that. The House is concerned that as an institution of government, when matters are before both houses of National Assembly, every organ of government should allow legislative action to be completed without undue interference, as it amounts to an abuse of the legislative processes in our country. The House is also concerned that there is an urgent need to ascertain the reason for the invasion of Dr. Joe Nunes' residence, and from whom and where the instruction for their arrest.
Yes.
The House resolves to mandate the House Committee on Police Affairs to investigate the reason for the invasion and report back to the House within 2 weeks. I so move.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I remain Honorable Ndudi Godwin Elmelu, and I represent the good people of Anocho Shimili Federal Constituency. I'm from Delta State. I rise to second the motion ably moved by the Deputy House Whip. I so second, Mr. Speaker. I so second, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, we'll put the question. Those in support, please say aye. Those against, please say nay. Ayes have it. Is Honorable Musa here? Pali. Okay, very quickly move your motion and then we'll move. That will be the last for today.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to present my motion. Musa Mohammed Pali is my name, member representing Al-Kaleri Kirfi. I am from Bauchi State. I have a motion, urgent need to investigate the assault of Nigerian students by College of Administration in India. Note that the two Nigerian students were seriously beaten up by the 8 people rocking Institution of Technology, RIT, on the 5th July 2020, worried that the students were beaten up by a mob called...
Honorable Ben Kalu. Is Ben Kalu here?
Yes, sir.
Okay, just don't go out yet.
Worried that the two Nigerian students were seriously...
It's a power to be able to advise the president, to be able to appoint reputable organizations to do that. And this, as recommended by the report, should be what should be followed. Finally, before I submit as president, I read on page 17 of the report, where the committee stated that it is pertinent to state that some of the identified stakeholders whom the other committee had requested information or document from did not respond. This is unacceptable, Mr. President. We are aware of the law of the land. That's an act, the privilege, the Parliamentary Privilege Act, and there's also the Constitution.
As a parliament, I think we should start invoking the law appropriately. When we require information from any person or anybody for the purpose of our work as said by the law, where such is not being provided, anybody is tampering with our power, we should guard that power very well. The recommendation here did not put that in it, and I think we should be able to put that in the recommendation. And if there are important documents that the committee has not been able to obtain, we should invoke the necessary power to do that. Finally, Mr. President, the chairman of the committee did not highlight that to state that he has put it out in the report that there are assertions of blackmail by ADC against members of the National Assembly on the subject of procurement process. This must be investigation, and if found true, the practice must be stopped. It will be stronger than that when we are considering the report, Mr. President, because this is the public domain. Just like last speaker said, that not members of the Assembly are beneficiaries of the contract, and I'm a member of this Assembly in the past 1 year. I'm aware that we are not. And as such, we should strongly be able to put this to the public, that we are not contractors and we are not benefiting from any contract. This is in this report. This must be read to the public, and we must follow this through. Thank you, Mr. President, for the opportunity.
Senator Ahmed Adamalero.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. I am Muhammad Adamalero, representing Kebbi Central. Mr. President, let me equally start by commending the chairman and members of this ad hoc committee for presenting a very good report. And all the speakers that spoke really expressed their satisfaction on the contents of the report. So I equally do the same. Secondly, Mr. President, we have seen very serious mismanagement on NLDC. And it is time for us to take serious action. It is not just enough for us to sit down here, debate the content of this report, and then we send it to the executive. We have to follow up and ensure that our recommendations are implemented to the letter. We have a committee charged with the responsibility of monitoring, the Niger Delta. And to me, something must have gone wrong. If all these infractions are happening and nothing has been reported to the Senate, till we get this ad hoc committee report, then in this oversight. Mr. President, we have seen a lot of money being spent on things that are intangible. We expect Niger Delta to be almost the same development we do today, going by the amount of money that is being pumped into the Niger Delta. The 30% derivation is going into Niger Delta. Mr. President, the whole purpose of setting up the NLDC is to ameliorate the hardship being encountered by the people in the Niger Delta as a result of exploitation of oil. A ministry for Niger Delta was created by President Musa Yar'Adua to also assist in the development of the Niger Delta. Oil companies are spending so much money, but yet, Mr. President, when you look at Niger Delta, you don't see anything but poverty and misery, as Senator Ademi has said. So time has come when we should take drastic action to ensure that the resources of the Niger Delta is being used to develop the region. Mr. President, there is a lot of impunity, recklessness on the part of the officials of Niger Delta. And there is nothing wrong with the law setting up the NNDC. A lot of people have said that we should review the law. I am of the opinion that there is nothing wrong with the law. We are not operating based on the provisions of that law. We have seen a situation where the budget is being thrown away and discretion is being used. The officials of the
NATC are using their discretion to implement what they call the budget. The budget passed by the National Assembly is being thrown away. This is recklessness. No money should be spent by an official of a government unless if that money is being appropriated by the National Assembly. This is the provision of the Constitution, and we are not obeying it. As the chairman of the Ad hoc Committee has said, the budget is not being implemented. The officials of the NNTC are using their discretion to award contracts. We have seen a situation where more than 50 contracts were awarded on one particular item. The idea is just to circumvent the Public Procurement Act. This is a gross violation of that act, and we should take serious action on that. We should not take it lightly. So I know the opinion, Mr. President, this report should not just be discussed here. We should follow it and ensure that whatever recommendation we make are being implemented. This is the only way we can fight corruption. Otherwise, we will be paying lip service, and corruption will continue unabated. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Sabi Alion.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. I'm Aliu Sabi Abdullahi. I represent Niger North. I'm from Niger State. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, let me align myself with the previous speakers and to congratulate and commend the chairman of the committee, distinguished Senator Olubumi. Absolutely, we expected nothing less. The committee did a very wonderful job, and the expose in the report is quite instructive. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, one of my colleagues said he is sad today. I think I will take the opposite. I'm happy today because this Senate has woken up and is living up to its commitment under the 9th Senate legislative agenda that we're going to take our job very seriously. We are going to take a different direction, and we are going to do things differently. And absolutely, to me, this is classical of that commitment. If you look at Section 88 of the Constitution, subsection 2B, which says, expose corruption, inefficiency, or waste in the execution or administration of laws within its legislative competence and in the disbursement or administration of funds appropriated by it. I don't think there is anything as classical as what has been done by this committee. To me, the spirit and letter of that provision of the Constitution has been brought to life by what the committee has done with this report. And I think going forward, it will be very, very fundamental that the Senate looks at this as a template, as a model, so that there are so many other segments of our laws or sectors of our economy that require this kind of thorough job to be done. And I think this is a wake-up call for all the various committees that are handling various sectors of our economy. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, what is important for us to take note of is the fact that the laws have been put in place to guide our intervention, especially in this very, very important region of our country. And as it is being said, we have to ask ourselves, is the law definitely meeting the objective for which it was set up? I think the comments from most of the speakers show clearly that the people of the Niger Delta, the common ones, the poor people, the Mekunus, they are being shortchanged. And like distinguished Senator Albert said, this is man's inhumanity to man, where people are finding it very difficult to live the most basic of life. And then some people are coming to give contract on a disease that is not the major problem, I think is really very sad. And definitely we must do something about this. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the other aspect that I would like us to take note of is the fact that the Niger Delta is known to us. Physically on the ground, we know what is there. And when we say the commission is set up to address the problems in those places, I think the aspect of the master plan is time for us to now come up with it so that anytime we are talking about the budget, we can see clearly what are the measurable indicators to making a difference in this region. If it is poverty, if we are approving the budget, how much of this poverty index is our intervention going to reduce? And I think this is what is lacking, and people are just doing whatever they like. So this is an intervention, and the intervention is on people. So this report has exposed all of this, and importantly also, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the institutional framework, because the institutions are weak. As you can see, the audit is weak, the accounting framework is weak, and it is people who are in that place. So we need to also interrogate and find out, why is it so weak? I think it is because perhaps some people are powerful and they can crush some other people who are given responsibility. So we need to find a way of protecting those who will be saddled with the responsibility so that they can do their job without fear or favor. And this National Assembly, indeed the Senate, has a duty to make sure that whatever institutional framework that needs to be strengthened is strengthened to allow these things to happen. Mr. President, I believe we are on the right track, and with this report, let us conclude so that at least Nigerians can know that we have done a work, and at the end of the day, this work is not just to do it for the sake of, the public display. It is actually to ensure that at the end of the day, when you go to the Niger Delta, by our intervention, you can begin to see the progress that our intervention can bring. Thank you very much for this.
Deputy Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Very distinguished colleagues. Mr. President, I want to add my voice in commending the very thorough work done by Senator Adetunde and his team. And I want to say today is a mourning day actually for the people of the Niger Delta, and I join them in mourning this day. The saddest part of what we are discussing is that there is no any demonstration of concern from the people of Niger Delta. Remember, this evil has been going on for long. It's not just from 2015 to now, no. The period preceding 2015 may have maybe more deadlier report. It is truly sad because this issue is a typical Nigerian problem. A typical Nigerian problem in the sense that the Niger Delta Development Commission is seen as a honeypot by most Nigerians, not only Niger Delta, by most Nigerians. And Mr. President, I want to put it more succinctly that every member of the Management Committee of Niger Delta has a godfather. And this godfather sits at the highest level of policy-making circumference in Abuja. They receive returns because when you want to treat an ailment, you must trace the root of that ailment. Are we thinking that what we are saying after today may not be just a mere television show? Because at the end of the day, every godfather will want to protect his own. And that is how, if we are not careful, this report may be swept under the carpet. There are instances we have seen more deadlier fraud than this, but silently it will disappear. In fact, The perpetrators of such fraud are today calling the shots in government. So my own is, like one of my colleagues said, I think there would have been a more tougher recommendation, because the president can take advantage of this and stamp his foot on the ground about the war against corruption. It is an ailment that everybody smells it, but nobody can say, here it is. All of us, we smell corruption. We say corruption is smelling all over the place, but nobody, it's like a dead rat in the ceiling that is smelling, you know, in the words of one of the anti-corruption experts. So if we want this matter to go, we must trace it to the root, because even as we speak, godfathers are positioning themselves, everybody to nominate his own, even if by sheer a streak of action, these ones can't survive this period. Every godfather will want to bring his own there so that he can receive returns. This is the Nigerian problem. And how do we overcome this? Except if there is a decisive measure. A decisive measure. Otherwise, if we want to treat people based on primordial relations, sentiments, and all that, it may not stand the test of time. We may just end up making noise here, and as it's been associated with parliamentarians, and nothing will come out of this. I support everything most of our colleagues have said concerning this matter. Those who express grief and open emotions about what they saw are right. But you cannot weep more than the bereaved. I expect a massive action even from the masses in the Niger Delta, because they are specialized in militancy. Why are they sleeping? Why are they? No, what I mean by militancy is when you are not giving your when you are not giving your due regard, you protest, and it's normal. It's normal. I support that myself. When you cheat me, I'll protest. But why are you not protesting now? Why are you not protesting? There's nothing wrong about when you try to be militant about what is yours and is denied.
Deputy Minority Leader, at the risk of misunderstanding what you mean, I hope you are not preaching for people. No, just listen. I hope you are not preaching for people to be militant. Because there are better ways of addressing issues, and this Senate will support people to go through peaceful means looking for their rights, not militancy.
President, I think, like you said, at the risk of not being misunderstood, what I mean is when you are taken for granted, there's nothing wrong about militancy. Sometimes it's not about carrying arms. It's protest. It's not carrying arms. That's not what I mean. When you protest against an ill treatment of what belongs to you or what is your right, it's normal. I expect to see a massive protest over this fraud in the Niger Delta Development Commission. But yet nothing is happening because everybody is waiting for his own opportunity. If it comes by me, this is my own time. Let me also loot. And all the people involved in this act are people of the Niger Delta. That is my worry. So there must be a new narrative in managing this intervention agency. And that is all that I have to say, Mr. President. Thank you, and I pray the Niger Delta problem will be resolved once and for all.
Senator Matthew Orogire.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm Senator Matthew Orogire. I represent Edo South Central District. Mr. President, my very distinguished colleagues, let me first and foremost lend my voice in thanking the ad hoc committee for a job well done, and of course all the exposure of what is going on in the NDDC. Mr. President, I want to say with a lot of regrets that those of us who are from the Niger Delta, particularly those of us who have been here for some time, it's unfortunate that we do not have anything to say good about the NDDC as far as the development of our states or the Niger Delta region is concerned.
I represent my state and my constituency in the Senate. Edo South Senatorial District is the reason why Edo State is classified as Niger Delta State. Mr. President, just like others will say here, the 3 local government areas out of my 7 that produce oil and gas, particularly Orion local government area, Mr. President, year in, year out, nothing. There is not one single project of NDDC. But you see, these things have been going on. And what you get here is all blackmail and blackmail from ministers and from all of them. And today, what has been shown by this report is to first and foremost vindicate those who have been, of course, those of us who are from that region who have been denied development by the NDDC. And of course, this thing that is even thick in the air, that what is happening there has to do with other extraneous persons. Well, we are going to get to some of these things with time. Mr. President, I want to say that this report, one of the things that's exposed is the very weak governance structure of the NDDC. And then, of course, the lacuna that exists in their Establishment Act. My colleagues have already mentioned that we need to go back to that act. One of the greatest disservice or leakage that we have seen in that act is the non-inclusion of the state reps, the commissioners. The person representing Edo State has nothing to do with the management committee, with the management board. That is what you see. So you have this handful of people, 5 or 6 people who now constitute the management board, who award this contract to themselves in total negligence of the states that are supposed to be developed. Very recently in the Senate, we passed the North Development Commission. Mr. Chairman, Mr. President, I want to say, the achievement that we have seen in that interventionist agency is far better than what we have recorded in NDDC over the years. And that is why some of us who are from the region will feel very bad that NDDC has not been able to meet up with the expectations or the objectives. In 2018, we were reviewing the budget performance of NDDC. The extra management board, when they came before the committee, it was a thing of regret that 5.32% was what was capital budget performance in my state. And I asked, why is it that low? You had a budget of over 9 billion for my state, only 5.2. He said, well, your governor said we should not do projects. I went back and asked my governor did not know anything about it. He tells you, they give you different reasons and blackmail people. Just like somebody said, the minister said a few days ago that the contracts in NDDC, they are being given to legislators. And the the Speaker of the House of Representatives has challenged him. If I ask for projects in my state for NDDC, and they are not done, and the reason for being here is for me to bring development to my constituency, and when you don't do it, to come and say, I've asked. If we have to facilitate projects, is it not our responsibility to so do? And shamelessly, the commission and the ministry and those who have been charged with responsibility, they have not done anything about it. And they are giving wrong information, positive wrong information in public domain. Mr. President, I want to say that the issue of contract award has been a blackmail. By the time we go deeply into it, you will find that this one has been a blackmail. Because these contracts have not been meeting with the needs assessment of the states. Nobody has gone to the states to go and ask, what do you want? Is it road you want? Is it school you want? Is it water you want? Nobody. The commission from establishment, go and check. Nothing has happened because no needs assessment. So I want to say, Mr. President, the supervision that was foisted on the minister of Niger Delta was a very huge mistake. When the supervision was under the SGF, we had even better organization of the place. The scandal that has trailed NDDC in the last 1.5 years or so, Mr. President, has been because of the wrong decision in asking one man to supervise the ministry. There are supposed to be 2 ministers there. Senator Alashadura is supposed to be a minister there. I have gone to him, I've interacted with him. He has told me he does not know anything happening there. Is that what it's supposed to be? So we really must personalize some of these things and hit the nail on the head. The person who has lacked competence in supervision, let us say it point blank. Not many resources is God. Without that supervision, it's
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues. Odebo Mishegun is my name. I represent the good people of Surulere Ogola Federal Constituency. I rise to second the motion heavily moved by Honorable Fakere. I so second.
Those in support, please say aye. Those against, please say nay. Ayes have it. Honorable members, the fifth business of the day is presentation of report of the Committee on Niger Delta Development Commission on the need to investigate the alleged financial malfeasance and other activities in the Niger Delta Development Commission, standing in the name of Honorable Olubunmi Tunji Ojo. Honorable members will recall that the matter was referred to the committee on Tuesday, 5th May 2020. Report is now ready for presentation. Honorable Ojo, please present your report.
Mr. Speaker, Honorable Ojo is not on the floor. I move that the presentation of the report be stepped down by the leave of the House. I so move.
Sorry, what was that?
Mr. Speaker, I said Honorable Ojo is not on the floor. I move that the presentation of the report be stepped down by the leave of the House.
Okay. Ojo, step down. The sixth order of the day is presentation of two reports of the Committee on Public Petitions. Honorable Jerry Alagbaso is invited to present the report.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. My colleagues, my name is Jerry Alagbaso. I'm from Imo State, representing Olo, also on the Federal Constituency. Mr. Speaker, I rise to present two reports. One, the House do receive the report of the Committee on Public Petitions on the petition by Dr. Napoleon S.J.P. against the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development, a call to function as the Director CEO of Nigerian Institute for Oil Palm Research, Benin. Two, the House do receive the report of the Committee on Public Petitions on the petition by Akiola James Akombi against Nigeria Immigration Service on appeal to investigate a case of suspension based on a fraud by the Nigeria Immigration Service and First Bank PLC after his unlawful disengagement from service by the authority. Mr. Speaker, I hereby present.
Honorable Abejide, please second.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Lady Abejide is my name. Representing the good people of Yagua Federal Constituency, I'm from Kogi State. I rise to second that the report, as moved by the ranking by age, to be accepted. I so second.
Those in support, please say aye. Those against, please say nay. Ayes have it. Honorable Alagbaso, please lay your report. Seventh business of the day is presentation of report on the ad hoc committee on the need to investigate the arbitrary breach of presidential directives on the suspension of top management and executive committee members of the Nigeria Social Insurance Trust Fund and other government agencies by ministers standing in the name of Honorable Mariam Onoha. Honorable members will recall that the matter was referred to the committee on Tuesday, 7th of July, 2020. Report is ready for presentation, Honorable Mariam.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, I rise this morning to move that the House do receive the report of the ad hoc committee on the need to investigate the arbitrary breach of presidential directives on the suspension of top management and executive committee members of the Nigeria Social Insurance Trust Fund, NSITF, and other government agencies by ministers, and approve the recommendations therein. I so submit, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, point of order.
Honorable Ifeanyi, what's your point of order?
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues. My name remains Honorable Barrister Ifeanyi Chudimoma. I represent the people of Ihiala, Federal Constituency area of Anambra State. Mr. Speaker, I rise under Order 17, Rule 3, Sub-Rule 1E, specifically page 89 of our standing orders. And with your permission, I would like to read it, Mr. Speaker. It says here, every member shall be permitted to indicate in a report that he or she dissents with a particular recommendation or comment within the report. The committee shall permit a member to express the reasons for such dissent. Mr. Speaker, I thank God that this House is the House of the Nigerian people that has been presided by you in the last 1 year round. And every process that must be dispensed here must be in accordance with fairness, equity, and natural justice. I, Ifeanyi Chudimoma, I'm a member of the ad hoc committee. And Mr. Speaker, it was this morning that I heard that the report will be submitted. I've discussed with the chairman of the subcommittee and the deputy chairman of the ad hoc committee rather, and the deputy chairman as well. And I just feel, Mr. Speaker, that my privilege that I should enjoy as someone who has an observation or a recommendation that doesn't fit in with the rules of natural justice, that I should have indicated, I should have been given the opportunity to indicate it in the report. So, Mr. Speaker, I crave the indulgence of this House, if it may please you and this Honorable House, to suspend the presentation of this report to enable me to fully exercise my rights and privileges as enshrined under this order. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Honorable Ifeanyi, your point is well taken. I believe that's probably why the report has not been presented. It was meant to be late today, presented today. I believe that's why it has not been presented. But please, very carefully note the rule that you have referred to. It does not say, and I don't know that if that's what you're saying, it does not allow for a dissenting report. It does not say you have an opportunity to dissent to a report. It actually only allows you to dissent to a particular recommendation or a particular comment, not the whole report, whatever that report is, I don't know. So, but yes, you are absolutely in order. you must be given an opportunity. If there is anything in particular or any comment that you object to or you dissent, just indicate the fact that you are dissenting to that. It does not mean that it will be expunged. It just allows you to indicate that you're against it before it comes. So, point of order sustained. Should I? Honorable, if I may please, can you approach the chair? Chairman, Business and Rules.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, I want to draw the attention of the House that there was a mishap in respect of Honorable Ifanyi's point of order, as a result of which there was a mix-up, and therefore I want to move that the House do rescind its election on stepping down Honorable Ojo's report. So I move,
Observation, sir.
I move that the House do rescind its decision on the submission of the report by Honorable Tunji Ojo, and now call upon him to submit his report. I so move.
Okay, so Honorable Ifanyi raised a point of order saying that he was not allowed to dissent in a particular comment in the report. I thought he was talking about the NDDC report, of which I know he's a member of that committee, and we agreed to step it down. It has now come to my understanding that that was not the report Honorable Ifeanyi was talking about. Apparently, Honorable Ifeanyi is a member of also the NSITF report laid by Princess Onoha, and that's the one he was referring to. Is that correct? Okay, so you have moved now that we rescind the resolution to step down the NDDC report, since that was not the one he was talking about. Yes, you've moved. That's what I'm saying. You have moved. So we will rescind that.
Observation, sir.
Any second that. One second. Let's rescind this one first. Any second, Honorable Odebumi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable colleague, Odebumi Segun is my name. I represent the good people of Surulere Federal Constituency. I rise to second the motion as moved by the Chairman, Rules and Business. I so second.
Okay, so the question is that we received the resolution that, to step down the NDDC report, which was based on a misunderstanding of Honorable Ifeanyi's point of order, and that we rescind that resolution and take the NDDC report. Those in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say nay. Ayes have it. Honorable Maki.
Mr. Speaker, my honorable colleagues, I remain Abubakar Maki Eleman. I'm from Jigawa State. I represent Malamudori Kaugama Federal Constituency. Mr. Speaker, my own observation against the point of order Mr. Ifeanyi raised. I am among the...
A picture of a scene of brazen looting spree by a group of people thinking that the money must be exhausted within a period of time, as if there will be no funding or resources at the end of the day. And the evidence of this also undermines the purpose for which the commission was set up. By the name of the commission, Niger Delta Development Commission. From the billions of naira taken away by way of contract splitting, by way of spurious spending, by way of breach of procedure in terms of procurement, and for very dubious exercises, particularly in terms of communications, show clearly that there appear to be a failure of even the commission as to the name given to it to be a developmental agency. But then, it calls to question the problem of governance that we have in Nigeria. Why do we have a commission set up by law having its own governance structure? And for the same purpose too, you also have a ministry as a branch of the executive for the same purposes. Aside the question of duplicity in terms of purpose, in terms of even the bureaucracy itself, does it really serve the purpose? And this permeates particularly almost all parts of our governance structure. As a National Assembly, we need to look at commissions created by law and see that they are really autonomous in their function and be responsible to the president through its own organ, rather than subject it to another layer of supervision that allow it. But the most important thing I also think in this regard is that the recommendation should go to relooking as to one, whether the commission itself is still of any use to be set up for the purpose of development, and if the commission is going to be going ahead, how do we structure it and insulate it from acts of looting, for it to have any meaningful purpose for the people in that regard. Then secondly, I think the report very voluminous. I will enjoin the committee to do possibly an exact summary of not only the recommendations but the salient findings, and for the National Assembly to advertise those reports for members of the public. It will be important for people, not only generally in Nigeria, but people in Niger Delta to know the atrocious acts that is being committed on the basis of Niger Delta Development Commission by the people saddled without their responsibility. Aside those ones, I've also looked, I think by the time we are dealing with the recommendations, there are clear prima facie cases of breach of law, particularly on procurement, fees, even contract and splitting, and of course, breach of provisions on budgetary provision on budget. This ought to be highlighted so that relevant anti-corruption agencies can take the report and go further and be able to deal with the issue of culpability. What is very important is that this National Assembly must take a position. Why do we still need to continue to create commissions and specialized agencies when in the long run the specialized agencies will be more of albatross to the Nigerian people than to be the blessing it desire to do so? And this is an issue that we may have to take at the level of the leadership with the executive. When there are agencies, should they not be allowed to function within the framework of the law setting them up? For instance, the concussion with respect to the executive or interim management committee is ultra-virus. It's not in the NDDC and ought not to have been encouraged in the first instance. It's like a group, maybe Trojans, just came to be able to even take away the whole of the NDDC because they have been given that platform to be able to do so. So I will enjoy that we need to look at governance issues.
Okay, please let the report.
Not seconded.
The eighth, Honorable Kumo, please.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, honorable colleagues. Usman Bello Kumo is my name, member representing Akko Federal Constituency. I'm from Gombe State. I have to move that the House do receive the report of the Committees of Police Affairs, Drugs and Narcotics, and Human Rights on the need to serve the lives of people of Abia South, from killings, further ransacking, restriction of movement and attack by joint police teams from Indigro and Cameroon Road Police Station. I so move.
Mr. Speaker, highly respected colleagues, my name is Rep. Otumba Adeomi Oriyomi Ononuga. I represent the fabulous United People of Ikene, Shagamu Remo North. I am from Ogun State. I rise to second the motion ably moved by Honorable Kumo. I so second.
Those in support, please say aye. Those against, please say nay. Ayes have it. First order of the day is the third reading of a bill for an act to provide for the establishment of the Institute of Environmental Practitioners of Nigeria and for related matters. Honorable members will recall that the House adopted the report of the Committee of the Whole on the bill on Tuesday, 21st July 2020. I therefore call on the Leader of the House to move that the bill be read the third time. Leader.
Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, I am Abubakar Falata. I represent Berniwa, Krikasama, Guri Federal Constituency. Mr. Speaker, I'm from Jigawa State. Mr. Speaker, I move that a bill for an act to provide for establishment of the Institute of Environmental Practitioners of Nigeria and for related matters, HB 353, be read the third time. I so move.
Seconder, Honorable Woodil.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. My name is Mohamed Al Udil. I rise to second the motion as ably moved by Honorable Plata. I so second.
Thank you, Honorable Woodil. Those in support, please say aye. Those against, please say nay. Ayes have it. And I invite the clerk to read the long title.
Honorable Speaker, honorable members, a bill for now to provide for the establishment of the Institute of Environmental Practitioners of Nigeria and for related matters. Third reading.
Bill read the third time and passed. Second order of the day is the third reading of a bill for an act to establish the Abuja Geographical Information Systems Agency and for related matters. Honorable members recall that the House adopted the report of the Committee of the Whole on the bill on Tuesday, 21st July 2020. I therefore call on the Leader of the House to move that the bill be now read a third time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I am Abubakar Safulata. I represent Berniwa, Krikasama, Gudi Federal Constituency. Mr. Speaker, I'm from Jigawa State. Mr. Speaker, I move that a bill for an act to establish the Abuja Geographic Information Systems Agency and for related matters, HB 215, be read the third time. I so move.
Honorable Woodil, again.
Thank you very much, Speaker. My name is Honorable Engineer Udil. I rise to second the motion as ably moved by Honorable Platt. I so second.
Is Honorable Victor Wokolo here? Just with okay, those in support, please say aye. Those against, please say nay. Ayes have it. Clerk, long title.
Honorable Speaker, honorable members, the bill for now to establish the Abuja Geographic Information Systems Agency and for related matters. Third reading.
Bill read the third time and passed. Third order of the day is the third reading of a bill for an act to provide for the establishment of Federal University of Technology, Auchi, Edo State, and for related matters. Honorable members recall that the House adopted the report of the Committee of the Whole on Tuesday, 21st July 2020. I therefore call on the Leader of the House to move that the bill be read a third time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I am Abubakar Santulata. I represent Berniwa, Krikasama, Gudi Federal Constituency. Mr. Speaker, I'm from Jigawa State. Mr. Speaker, I move that a bill for an act to provide for the establishment of Federal University of Technology, Auchi, Edo State, and for related matters, HB 527 be read the third time. I so move.
Chairman, Foreign Affairs.
I represent Gombe Federal Constituency from Adamawa State. I rise to second that the bill be read the third time. I so second.
Those in support, please say aye. Those against, please say nay. Ayes have it. Clerk, long title, please.
Honorable Speaker, honorable members, a bill for now to provide for the establishment of Federal University of Technology, Auchi, Edo State, and for related matters. Third reading.
Bill read the third time and passed. Fourth order of the day is commencement of debate on the general principles of a bill for an act to repeal the Banks and Other Financial Institutions Act 2004 and enact the Banks and Other Financial Institutions Bill 2020 and for related matters, standing in the name of the House Leader. Honorable members recall that the bill was transmitted from the Senate seeking concurrence of the House and read the first time on Thursday, 23rd July 2020, and I invite the leader to move that the bill be now read a second time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I am Abubakar Samflata. I represent Berniwa, Krika, Samuel, Guli Federal Constituency. Mr. Speaker, I'm from Jigawa State. Mr. Speaker, I move that a bill for an act to repeal the Banks and Other Financial Institutions Act 2004 and enact the Banks and Other Financial Institutions Act 2020 and for related matters, HB 1031. I so move.
Honorable Mansour Soros, good to see you. Can you second this bill?
Right, Honorable Speaker, my colleagues, my name is Mansour Soro, member representing Darul Benja, Federal Constituency. I rise to second that a bill for an act to repeal the Banks and Other Financial Institutions Act 2004 and enact the Banks and Other Financial Institutions Act 2020 and for related matters be read the second time. I so second.
Honorable colleagues, this is a bill concerning banking. I deliberately picked on Honorable Mansour to second it because he's versed in banking and sundry matters. And since he has seconded it, I think we should just put the question. Those in support, please say aye. Those against, please say nay. Ayes have it. Is commencement of the... Oh. Yes. Clerk. It is really a long title.
Honorable Speaker, honorable members, a bill for now to repeal the Banks and Other Financial Institutions Act 2004 and enact the Banks and Other Financial Institutions Act 2020 and for related matters. Second reading.
Refer to Committee of the Whole. Fifth order of the day is the commencement of debate of the general principle of a bill for an act to establish the National Agency for the Control of Cancer and for related matters, standing in the name of Honorable Kolawole Lawal. Honorable members will recall that the bill was read the first time on Thursday, 13 February 2020. I now invite Honorable Lawal to move that the bill be now read a second time. Honorable Lawal.
I'm here. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues. My name is Kolawole Lawal, representing Bado South, Ipuki Federal Constituency. I'm from Ogun State. Mr. Speaker, I rise to move at a bill for an act to establish the National Agency for the Control of Cancer and for related matters be read the second time. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Aisha Duku, Chairman, Electoral Matters, please, can you second?
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. And highly respected colleagues, I'm Honorable Aisha Jibril Duku, Gimbier Duku, member representing Dukuna for the Federal Constituency. I come from Gombe State. I rise to second the bill for its movement for the second time. I so move. I so second. Thank you.
This is an establishment bill. I'll just put the... Does anybody want to speak against this bill? For the question. Those in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say nay. Let's have it. Clerk, long title.
Honorable Speaker, honorable members, a bill for now to establish National Agency for the Control of Cancer and for related matters, second reading.
Bill referred to the Committee on Health Institutions. Sixth order of the day is commencement of debate on the general principles of a bill for an act to establish the Federal Medical Center, or GOJA, and for related matters, standing in the name of Honorable Jarigbe. Honorable members will recall that the bill was read the first time on Thursday, 24th July 2019. Wow, this bill is going to be a year old tomorrow. Today is the 23rd. Okay, this bill was read for the first time on Thursday, 24th July 2019, and I invite Honorable Jarigbe to move that the bill be now read a second time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable colleagues, Jarigbe Agam Jarigbe, I represent the good people of Ogoja Yala Federal Constituency. I'm from Cross River State. I rise to move that a bill for an act to establish the Federal Medical Center of Ogoja and for related matters be read the second time. I so move.
Honorable Nolly, do you want to have the privilege of seconding a bill that has been in legislative process for 1 year?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, my colleagues. My name is Niger. I represent in Kano East West Federal Constituency. I'm from Enugu State. Mr. Speaker, I rise to second that the bill for an act to establish Federal Medical Center, Ogoja, be read for second time. I so second.
Okay, let me put the question again. It's also an establishment bill. Those in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say nay. Ayes have it. Clerk.
Next. Honorable Speaker, honorable members, a bill for an act to establish Federal Medical Center of Goja and for related matters. Second reading.
Your time is off, Honorable Japar.
Clerk, have you read the long title? Have we put the question where? You've read the title? Okay. Okay, so the matter is referred to the Committee on Health Institutions. Seventh order of the day is commencement of debate on the general principles of a bill for an act to repeal the National Park Service Act Cap N65 laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004 and to enact the National Park Service Act National Park Service Act establish the National Park to be responsible for the presentation, enhancement, and protection of wild animals, plants, and other vegetation in national parks, and promote ecotourism through public-private partnerships, and for related matters, standing in the name of Honorable Johnson Oguma, Honorable Obidigwe Chinedu. Honorable members will recall that the bill was read the first time on Tuesday, 29th of October 2019, and I invite Honorable Oguma to move that the bill be read a second time.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and my respected colleagues. I am Honorable Johnson Egwahidi Oguma. I represent all the people of this federal constituency. I am from Edo State. Mr. Speaker, I rise to move for a bill for an act to repeal National Park Service Act, CAP N65, laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004, and enact the National Park Service Bill. Establish the National Park to be responsible for the presentation, enhancement, and protection of wild animals, plants, and other vegetation in national parks, and promote ecotourism through public-private partnerships, and for related matters. Be read second time. As so, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Yemi Ali.
Thank you, Mr.
Please let us know your constituency.
I'm happily representing the people of Motion 1 for constituency in Lagos. Mr. Speaker.
I'm sorry?
Very soon, sir, Mr. Speaker, I will respond to the claim that they wanted to, the Honourable Minister wanted to export someone from another area to my constituency. Mr. Speaker, I rise to second the motion, ably moved by my honourable colleague, Honourable Johnson from Edo State. I so second. Thank you.
Thank you. Those in support that this bill be read a second time, please say aye. Those against, please say nay. Ayes have it. Bill, clerk.
Honorable Speaker, honorable members, a bill for an act to repeal the National Park Service Act, Chapter N65, laws for the Federation of Nigeria 2004, and the National Park Service Bill, establish the National Park to be responsible for the preservation, enhancement, and protection of wild animals, plants, and other vegetation in national parks, and promote ecotourism through public-private partnership, and for later matters. Second reading.
Bill referred to the Committee on Culture and Tourism. The eighth order of the day is commencement of debate on the general principles of a bill for an act to establish the Federal Polytechnic Garko Kano State that shall provide full-time courses in technology, social sciences, applied science, management, and other fields of studies, and to make provisions for the general administration of the Polytechnic, and for related matters, stand in the name of Honorable Mohammed Ali Wudil. Honorable members,
ability, transparency, and professionalism in the output of the exercise. Furthermore, the committee recommends that the President will advise from the Auditor General should appoint a renowned internationally recognized forensic audit to carry out the exercise. Actually, this is a constitutional provision, really, because the Auditor General's office audits the MDS, but in the case of corporations and commissions like this, he selects from a list of auditors or auditing firms and gives the okay for them to audit, and then he takes the report. So this is in line with the Constitution, actually. So those, yes? Sorry? Yes. So it's not the ministry or the IMC that will say these are the auditors to do the forensic audit. You can't be auditing yourself. Those in favor of this recommendation say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Recommendation 8, strengthening of procurement process. That the NDDC must strengthen its procurement department through appropriate staff engagement, e.g. by appointing staff with procurement chartered status, staff training, and formulation of appropriate industry-rated internal control measure specifics to procurement function to forestall sharp practice in its bids and tender process. There are assertions of blackmail by NDDC against members of the National Assembly on the subject of procurement process. This must be investigated, and if found true, the practice must be stopped. Well, I think I would suggest that the latter part be also a recommendation rather than part, so that we give it some prominence rather than just merging it with. It's such an important issue that we cannot just make it secondary. So can we separate that so that we make it? Chairman.
I wish to amend that recommendation 8 stop with the first paragraph and the second paragraph becomes recommendation 9.
Senator Otadi, you may second that. Thank you very much. So the recommendation, those in favor that we separate recommendation, we aggregate recommendation 8 into 8 and 9, say aye. Those against any the ayes. So recommendation 8 will stop at untender process. Those in favor of recommendation 8, the new recommendation 8, say aye. Those against any the ayes. Our recommendation 9 will be, there are assertions of blackmail by NDDC against members of the National Assembly on the subject of procurement process, that this must be investigated, and if found true, the practice must be stopped. Who investigates it? Chairman, who will investigate it?
It's by ethics and privileges, sir.
I'm not asking for the stop.
Yes. By Ethics and Privileges Committee of the Senate.
It should be clearly stated that and I would suggest that this must be investigated by the committee, the Senate Committee on Ethics, Privileges and Public Petitions, and it stops there. Secretary, take note. Those in favor of our new recommendation 9, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. So we are giving them 4 weeks, the Committee on Ethics and Privileges, within which to report their findings. Recommendation 10, which one? Okay, read the amendment.
That the sum of 4.923 billion made to staff and contractors in breach of procurement process and approvals should be refunded to the NDDC account with immediate effect as highlighted below.
Okay, let me ask you, is it one account of the NDDC or many accounts? Did they take the money from just one account or many accounts?
The money should be returned into the coffers of the NDDC by the interim management committee of NDDC.
You didn't say that? Okay. I think we'll have to extend time because, sorry, we have out of order, sir. I thought we could.
Thank you, Mr. President. In view of the fact that we will not be able to conclude the deliberation before 2 o'clock, I move that we suspend order number 13 and that we should sit beyond 2 o'clock. I so move.
Minority Leader.
Mr. President, I rise to second the motion this morning.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that we suspend our order 13 to enable us sit beyond 2 p.m. say aye. Those against any the ayes have it. Just hold on. So your amendment is to the NDDC account. Okay. So who is going to second that? Senator Query.
I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the amendment to recommendation 10, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Those in favor of recommendation 10 as amended, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Senator.
Amendment, Mr. President. My name is Senator Shiako Abu. The recommendation number 10 now, which was 9 before now, should read, because I believe that it's time for us to start calling spade a spade. The sum of 4,923,000,000 naira be refunded, paid to management, staff, and contractors by the Interim Management Committee, IMC, in breach of procurement process and approvals, should be refunded by the Interim Management Committee and the Minister for Niger Delta Affairs, Senator Godswill Akpabio. Thank you, Mr.
And let me ask here. Committee is supposed to give us this information. Who and who took the money? Because if we are going to mention names, we should mention the names of people or officers who took the money, not to give a general this thing. You said contractors, you said staff. So who and who?
Thank you, sir. In chapters 3 and 4, all the people that took money on overseas travels are listed, and they are staff of NDDC. Scholarship grants were taken by staff, and the subsidiary schedule is contained in chapter 3. Union members' trip to East Italy are union members of NDDC, and their names are listed. The account they paid into, we have them, is all in the annexes of the report. Lassa fever kit is a contract to a corporate, and the list is contained in the chapter under Lassa fever. The same thing with public communications, 1.2 billion. Contracts were awarded to companies in the subsidiary under public communications is in chapter 3. And COVID relief is also in chapter 3. The names of people that took the monies are there. There's nowhere that the minister took money, but the staff took money.
Okay, can we do cross-referencing? If we cannot bring all the names, can we now refer to the list of people who took the money? But let me ask this. So I think that should be the way to go. We have the names. But when, I'm not a lawyer, we have lawyers here, including the DSP. When you give me a contract, even if it is something that your organization doesn't need, you ask me to supply, you pay me for supplying those things. What is my fault as a contractor? Lawyers.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is why that question as to who and who ought to make the refund is very, very important. There may be some beneficiaries who are in possession of stolen property, that is stolen monies. And to the extent that they took without knowledge of the illegality, they may get away with it. But there's a finding by the committee, one, of negligent supervision. With that negligent supervision comes responsibility for those decisions taken. So to the extent that those monies ought not to have been paid, and because there was negligent supervision, the person who ought to provide the proper supervision, because there's a breach of duty of care here. So,
okay, DSP, you see, I just want, I'm asking questions because just on that score, we are talking of specific monies to be refunded, specific. The committee says contractors, staff and contractors in breach. If a contractor supplied even the most unwanted or unneeded thing that NDDC asked them to bring or asked him to bring, and they paid that contractor. To me, to my understanding as a layman, the contractor has fulfilled his side of the contract. Is the management that could be indicted for requesting or procuring things that are not needed. The contractor has, to me, has no fault. So we need to remove contractors from this.
To the extent that we're holding the management responsible for that refund, it is the management that will now pursue those to whom they illegally gave out those monies. But the people to be held responsible here is the interim management committee on the one hand, and then either the minister of Niger Delta or the minister of Niger Delta that has been held to have provided negligent supervision.
Senator Ibrahim,
Thank you, Mr. President. I think I've looked carefully into the attachment. We need to be specific. The contractors, Mr. President, I agree with your submission, are not liable because as far as if the committee did not find them not supplying what they claim they supply. So that's the only thing. Once they supply the Lassa Fever kits or whatever kits, they are not liable. It is the approving authority that bridges the extant rules and guidelines. To that extent, I will recommend that the staff who collected money directly for things that are not properly done, they will refund. The IMC who approve are the ones that are liable. Now, on the other part, the supervising ministry may not be liable as far if it didn't get to them. The report did not speak to us whether the IMC seek approval, except the chairman is able to confirm through their team that the IMC got approval from the ministry or minister to undertook such things without property, then it becomes liable. That's that position. It's the staff and IMC that were liable as listed in this report.
Any contribution? Okay, DSP.
Very correct. Since the little bit is very, very correct. But there's a finding to the effect that the IMC got the approval of the Minister of Niger Delta Affairs, and that was even an attachment. So that
okay, does that make the Minister of Niger Delta to pay money for the contract? I think first of all, let's establish certain things. First, what is the procurement process? Is it IMC that is supposed to approve contracts for supplies of goods and services to the NDDC or the minister? Secondly, my understanding is even if it is the IMC that okayed the supplies of this thing, the contractor should have no business to be asked to bring back money. And then it is an abuse of process, taking advantage of probably lack of board or lack of sufficient supervision by the Ministry of the Niger Delta that made the IMC to ask for things that were not needed by the people of the Niger Delta. So if we are talking about this, are we going to ask the IMC to pay money for what those contracts, or indict the IMC for doing the wrong thing? Senator Aisha too. Amen.
Thank you, Mr. President. Aisha Ahmed Bilani, representing Adama Central. I just don't want us to miss the points of who initiates the contract, because usually contracts are being initiated based on the needs of the people or based on the needs of the region. So we should not just start taking it from who approves the contract, who initiates the contract, and what necessitates the initiation of the contract. So if somebody sits by the virtue of his position and initiates what the region does not require or what the people are not in need of, and that person should also be accountable for it. Thank you.
Okay, Senator Said Al-Ghali.
Mr. President, I think we have to get something very, very clear. First and foremost, Lassa fever case 1.96 billion. We have to establish whether there is budgetary provision of the money spent first and foremost. If it is in the budget, then it is whose threshold to approve that quantum of money. That one to have to be established before we get to who is to refund or who is not to refund. Thank you, Mr. President.
Yeah, I think the chairman.
Let me propose this amendment, whether it will address the concerns, that the sum of 4.923 billion made to staff and contractors in breach of procurement process and approvals should be refunded to the NDDC account by the management of NDDC with immediate effect as highlighted below. The interim management of committee of NDDC, because it's a management culpability. Yes, that's why I didn't say 1 and 2, just IMC, all of them. They should be responsible for this refund. When the recommendation gets to implementation, they will decide what individuals will pay back and how the others will be paid back. But the management that is responsible for approving those payments, either to staff or contractors in breach of procurement process, should be responsible for that recovery.
Yeah, it's okay, but I want us to take note of what Senators Aisha Ahmed Madibo and Senator Said Al-Ali said. We need to know who initiated the procurement. You will indict the people or the person who initiated this because they had acquired things that were simply not needed by the people of Niger Delta. And also the point raised by Senator Said Al-Ali, whether those things paid for were in the budget. If they are not in the budget, somebody should pay back the money. So we need, because that's extra budgetary. So the manager should pay back that money if it is not in the budget. Were those things in the budget? Chairman.
The finding of the committee, Your Excellency, is that this agency did not operate a budget. They didn't function on the basis of this is the provision of the budget and this is the limit I can spend, or I have already finished spending the budget, I cannot do this exercise. There was nothing like that.
So in this respect, we need to make a distinction. First, there were monies that were like free money given to staff. Secondly, there were extra budgetary expenditures. Those who are responsible for the procurement should pay back the money. The contractors have no fault here. So can we couch it in that order? Senator Yusuf.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think to solve this problem, we might have just a breach of provisions of Procurement Act, because every default in all these processes, in default of the Articles of Procurement Act, will capture who exactly is in default. So instead of just procurement process, we should talk about provisions of Procurement Act.
Okay, thank you very much. Distinguished colleagues, probably I'm getting involved a lot. This is because when you will ask someone to pay money, refund, he or she is likely to challenge it and go to court. So whatever we will pass here, let's make it as watertight as possible. That's why I'm trying to ask this question, so that we don't just pass something and then someone goes to court and gets away with that thing. Senator Said Al-Ali.
Thank you, Mr. President. Going by the explanation given to this Hallowed Chamber by the chairman, that 1.96 billion is not in the budget. So what we want to establish here what is the provision of the law for an organization to spend money that are not budgeted for?
We know the provision. No, we know the provision. That's an illegal expenditure, and the money should be refunded. So I think we can now put the question right. As amended. Those in favor of recommendation 10 as amended, say aye. Those against say nay, the ayes have it. Yes, Senator Said Al-Ali.
Another observation, sir. In the body of the report, the sum of 1.3 million was spent on budget participatory conference. And the committee recommends the monies to be refunded, but it's not in the recommendation here, sir.
Then let it be an additional, or are you going to amend no, I know that in the recommendation, can we amend the recommendation? Yeah, to provide for that, or we have a new recommendation? Chairman, which one will you prefer?
I would like to seek the indulgence of this Senate that this be adopted, but the committee should be asked to ensure that all refund issues that are contained in the body of the report should be used to highlight here, and then
should be incorporated in 10. Okay, I think the Senate should give you that. Are we okay that the committee looks at that? But that's the basic minimum. Nothing should happen to what we have passed, only additional. Yes, the one that we have passed should remain as it is, but only additional. Yes. Senator Francis Adenigba. Not reached there yet. Yes, we have not reached there yet. Yes.
Mr. President, my concern is if we critically look at page 110, it says here in a very clear English that the absence of the board of directors created a major lacuna of oversight, meaning that without the board, the direct supervision goes to the Ministry of Niger Delta Affairs. And by so doing, we know that no agency of government can approve over 250 million naira or above for certain things. If it is above 250 million, it must seek approval from a bigger management, that's the ministry. So no matter how we are trying to look at this here, the ministry must have approved this one since there's no board in place. So the minister must have approved it. Then
Sorry? Senator Brown Weber.
Mr. Chairman, sir, I think with respect to my colleagues, if you look at the report, they were a little bit clever in stealing the money, sir. They broke down the contract into what the management board can approve. That is what it shows, except for one in the last Viva, which is one board, one contractor, 850 something. That may be isolated. That's beyond the IMC. But most of the other ones, including money paid to staff and so on, they were broken down into such items within the power of the IMC. That's why its amendment was said by amendment, I stood by it. However, as we give them the power, there's an item in the Lassa Viva, which is 800 and something million. That definitely will be approved by higher authority.
Okay, can we go to 11, please? All expenditures, what's this? Chairman, on historical contracts and obligation, easy hotels, court judgment, etc., should be refunded as payments are not provided for in the budget. Yes, we have said that. But who should pay? The IMC. Okay, let's mention it clearly. Let it not be vague.
The management of the IMC, I will work with the Secretariat.
What I don't understand is, So those in favor of recommendation 11 as amended, say aye. Those against say nay, the ayes have it. This 6.4, what is this business process? Is it part of recommendation 11?
The next set of recommendations starts from X1, and they address the issue of business process reengineering.
So what do you call this 6.4? Recommendation what?
What I'm saying, sir, is that the recommendation starts from review of operations and processes. Yes. Number 1.
Can we call that as 12? Okay. So we renumber, please. B will be 13. C will be 14. D will be 15. E will be 16. Then we'll go to the next. Okay, those in favor of review of operation and processes. Standard operating procedures in the commission must be reviewed, upgraded, reinstituted with full documentation and formal trainings conducted, then translated into readable materials and manuals for guidance of current and future staff of the Commission. That NDDC must engage a new governance system around projects and contracts from advert to award and then to delivery. This involves the pre- and post-implementation step to be taken for an effective delivery of projects. Those in favor of this recommendation say aye. Those against say nay, the ayes have it. Recommendation 13. Review of financial accounting processes. That NDDC must review its financial system to ensure its adequacy in terms of controls and flexibilities with a view to ensuring that a robust financial report is produced out of the system at all times. This reform will also ensure that all compliance measures that fosters governance and accountability traits are captured in the system in form of coding of transactions, hierarchy, and skewed access to control. Those in favor of recommendation 13 say aye. Those against say nay, the ayes have it. Recommendation 14, review of human resources policy. That the management must agree a policy to refocus the staff and management of the NDDC based on its core mandate. This will be a blend of human resource reform and training. This reform must lead to a robust organogram based on staff need. It must also cover the engagement of staff orientation mandate, appraisal systems, and eventually surveillance of work relationship. Those in favor of recommendation 14 say aye. Those against say nay, the ayes have it. Recommendation 15, instituting performance-based organization. For NDDC to deliver on its mandate, it must immediately imbibe some of the processes associated with high-performance organizations. These include target setting for employees, performance appraisal linked to the reward system, and the evolution of a new corporate culture. Present attitude that tends to view the NDDC as a source of easy money must be discouraged. This attitude is also solely or closely tied to the narrative that has characterized succeeding management. It is akin to a self-fulfilling prophecy that he who has in itself the prophecy that in itself led to a vicious cycle that seems to suggest, in quotes, we are financially imprudent because we operate in an environment of siege where we must continuously appease our stakeholders, end of quote. But doing this as they deprive the region of the needed development, which also reinforces restiveness and creates the siege environment. This cycle must be broken through a new culture and awareness by which the board and management of NDDC understands its responsibility to engender a new thinking and strong focus on infrastructure development of the region. A new approach to human resource management is desired. Those in favor of recommendation 15 say aye. Those against say nay, the ayes have it. Recommendation 16, enhancement of internal and external audit capacities. That management must review the service level agreement they currently hold with the external auditor with a view to making a change of auditor. There is a lot of merits, in our opinion, to change the external auditors given the level of systematic failures already listed in this report, some of which should have been resolved by an effective audit regime. Before we pass this recommendation, the Auditor General will normally be the one to approve the external auditors. What did you find? Is it the IMC that is approving the...
Mr. President, we don't have information on the approval of the existing auditors, but the quality of report that was given to our committee by the external auditors of an agency as big as that is totally substandard and suboptimal. And that is why we said that the enhancement of the internal and external audit capacities of the NDDC needs to be looked into.
Well, I think it will not be a bad idea for us to find out, because this is a continuous something. In addition to the forensic audit, this is supposed to be something that is supposed to be done yearly. So we need, and this is not for NDDC alone. What is the Committee on Public Accounts? This is not for NDDC alone. Organizations, MDA should not be appointing auditors themselves, external auditors, because that will mean you appoint someone who will be lenient, or you direct. Senator Adiola.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am happy that you recognize it. Mr. President, this forensic auditor, this is the question, and you have hit the nail on the head, that which board are they going to be indicting? Is it because there are 3 boards in a row? The previous board, the interim board, the woman that was recently sacked, and the last one. So who appointed them? And who and what areas are they covering in this audit? So I agree with you, sir, that we should engage the Service of Auditor General to know where they are coming from, because if they are appointed by the minister, then they'll be doing the bidding of the minister. If they are appointed by any of the past board, they'll be doing the bidding of any of the past board. So we will need an auditor general, auditor that is truly independent, that can audit the 3 boards and give us a complete report.
Chairman.
I think the committee's position is in perfect agreement with what my colleague has said. But your comment is on the forensic audit. There is a resolution already on that that says the Office of the Auditor General of the Federation should address the President on an internationally reputable firm to do the forensic audit. This audit we are talking here is the statutory corporate audit of the organization that happens every year. The system of the audit, internal and external, of NDDC currently is heavily compromised.
So we need to find out. Senator Yusuf.
Sir, my own is a point of clarification. Where an external auditor is found to be in complicit, what do we do with that audit firm? Because to deter other auditing firms who may be, who may want to collude with management to do this kind of dirty jobs.
No, I think that is going to take us out of what we are supposed to do, really, because anybody could lay claim to mistakes, making mistakes or whatever. So we shouldn't start looking at that the auditor himself didn't do the right thing. Senator Peter Mobushi, you raise your hand.
No, I only wanted to, Mr. President, it is the Auditor General's office that appoints the external auditors, and then they report back to the Auditor General. It's not done when nobody appointed, it's done by the Auditor General's office, that's the external auditors.
I think that is good information for us. So recommendation, those in favor of recommendation 16 say aye, those against say nay, the ayes have it. Chairman, then the last recommendation, this one that you say is 12. What are we supposed to number it? Can we make it 17? Okay. Recommendation 17, review of corporate social responsibility policy CSR. That the management embark on a CSR review to restructure and reshape NDDC's social responsibility to its staff, community and the public at large in order to properly ensure an equitable and responsible delivery of these responsibilities without losing focus of his corporate mandate. The scope of this review should include condolences, community relations, and stakeholders' engagement. Those in favor of this recommendation say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Well, thank you very much, distinguished colleagues, and let me join colleagues who contributed by also commending the chairman and members of the ad hoc committee that did this investigation. And I want to say that this Senate, and indeed this National Assembly, has always been sensitive and responsive to the yearnings of the people of this country from any section. I recall that in 2000, the NDDC Act or bill then had to be passed by the National Assembly through override of a presidential veto. In 2002, the National Assembly passed the bill to abolish the offshore and onshore dichotomy, just to give more resources to the states of the Niger Delta. In fact, those of us from the other parts of the country made a huge sacrifice because the offshore funds realizable from the sale of oil and gas would also go to our states ordinarily. But we still voted for the bill to abolish that so that more resources will go to the Niger Delta states for development. Most of our colleagues who contributed talked about the 13% reservation in the Constitution, the NDDC itself, the Commission, the Ministry of Niger Delta Affairs, the amnesty program, the special presidential intervention. These are all efforts by government, and not only this administration, right from 1999, to ensure that special developmental attention is...
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. And my respected colleagues, I am Honorable Johnson Egwahido Oguma. I represent all the people of Etako Federal Constituency. I'm from Edo State. With due respect to the sponsor of this bill, I have a reservation for this bill, Mr. Speaker. This bill tends to give immunity to judges, the Supreme Court justice, and all the justices in Supreme Court, in fact, all judges, even to the state and the Federal Capital Territory. And the section of the Constitution, which is 308, that they want to alter, gives immunity to President and the Vice President, Governor, and the Deputy Governor. But, Mr. Speaker, for judges who have power to take life and spare life, to be given immunity against both civil and criminal matters, it therefore means that we are surrendering our lives to somebody that is infallible. Only God alone is infallible. And only God alone can use such a power without any fault. But for a human being that is already playing a role of God, with the power given to them in the Constitution to take life and to spare life, to now have immunity against civil cases or criminal cases, it therefore means that all of us are in danger. Because the only thing that will restrict them to behave, to know that they are representing God wherever they are presiding, is that immunity that they do not have. Mr. Speaker, with all due respect, my wife is on the bench too. Even as I'm speaking, my wife is on the bench. But I feel that we cannot grant immunity to people with power to take life and to spare life. So that is just my own submission for this bill. I respect the promoter of this bill, but we need to look into this matter very critically. Giving them immunity, we will be surrendering everything that is moral and justiciable to the people that already have power to kill and to spare life. That is my That is my submission, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, just to quickly correct you, I mean, the bill in front of me is not for judges of high courts. Or it says the chief justices of the high courts, not for all the judges, just so that we're guided. Who else wanted to? Honorable Avanta, okay.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I remain Uzaman Kim Abanta, a Manara boy. What I'm trying to say, Mr. Speaker, is yes, there are merits in saying protect the presiding officers. And I may ask, what is the difference between the presiding officer and the other judges? Same function, but just that one.
The difference between presiding officer and?
There are merits in the bill to protect presiding officers. Then I went forth to say there's a thin line between the presiding officers of the court and the ordinary judges. I'm inclined to agree that to avoid distraction, unnecessary harassment, we should have that. However, I'm also persuaded to say that we should, at the
Instead, this PIB, from 2007 to date, PIB has defied passage in one sense, or has defied assent in another sense. We want to have it passed, we want to have it assented during the lifespan of this assembly, and by the grace of God, within this year. With this, distinguished colleagues, once again, thank you most sincerely. Now, the question will be those in favor of the motion that this Senate goes on recess from today until the 15th of September 2020 at 10 a.m. prompt. Say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it.
Find a way to make sure that in solving a problem, we don't create another problem. So it's going to be in the fine-tuning and the language that finally comes out of the committee, and I quite agree with you. So just put the question. Those in support, please say aye. Those against, please say nay. Honorable Igariwe, do you want to, since we didn't allow you to lead the debate, we only took those who were speaking against. Honorable Igariwe.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much. Mr. Speaker, this is a bill which I conceived in the spirit of the Constitution. We have three arms. The executive is enjoying immunity under Section 308. The president and his vice, the governor and his vice. The major argument for immunity is to avoid distraction. That is the major argument people give why the president and his deputy or the governor and his deputy should enjoy immunity. But I even think that if there is an arm that should enjoy immunity most, it is the judiciary. We all know how important the judiciary is, especially in the interpretation of everything that concerns us. And that is why I think that if there is an arm that should enjoy lack of that distraction, it is the judiciary. So that is why I think that in law we say that equality is equity. If the executive is enjoying it, I don't see why the legislature shouldn't enjoy it. I don't see why the judiciary shouldn't also enjoy it. That is the basis of my argument. We think that what is good for the executive should also be good for the judiciary and the legislature. If for any reason we decide to take out the immunity clause from our constitution, then the executive shouldn't enjoy it, the legislature shouldn't enjoy it, the judiciary also shouldn't enjoy it. But so far as the principle of immunity is there under Section 308, I think it's just fair that all the arms should enjoy it. Our constitution says all the three arms are equal and coordinate in function. If we truly mean it, then why should it just be the executive that should enjoy it? I think we all saw what happened with our Supreme Court judges. Justice is one thing that must be dispensed without fear. And what this bill seeks to do is to make sure that no judge is sitting and is afraid that anybody is coming to arrest him and try him for any civil or criminal action. In law, we say that time does not run against crime. The intention of this bill is that if any judge of a high offense, that offense should endure until he leaves office and he can be prosecuted for that offense. It's the same thing that is going for the president or the governors of the state. Nobody is saying that they should go scot-free if they commit offenses. But while they are in office, they should enjoy that serenity of office. They should enjoy that peace of mind that they are actually going to dispense justice without fear or favor. That's the sense of the bill, Mr. Speaker, and I will urge my colleagues to look at it. It does appear that the scale is weighing so much against the judiciary if we don't allow them, especially at that top echelon, to act without fear of whether it is DSS or police that is coming to arrest them in the night and accuse them of one thing or the other. We've all seen what happened not too long ago when judges could be arrested in the night on one charge or the other. So this is just to bring stability to our democracy. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
Okay. I think what Honorable Gary is saying is that we have to balance justice and the equality of government, principle of equality of the three arms of government. If we say the judiciary should not have protection or immunity, then we have no moral grounds to bring, which I think we did some months ago. We brought a bill for immunity for the heads of the legislative arm of government. So we cannot, I don't think we should be bringing for us and denying for the judiciary. And again, let me note what I said earlier. It's not for judges, even though Honorable Abonta's point is very fair. It's not for judges, it's for the heads of that arm of government, not for the judges. Honorable Toby.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable colleagues. I think, my name is Toby Okechukwu. I represent Aniri of Godiriba Federal Constituency from Enugu State. Mr. Speaker, in a developing country where we have very strong men and not strong institutions, where precedents of practice may be untoward with regard to respecting conduct precedents, it is very, very important to err on the side of protection of people who could be vulnerable. And from all indications, Mr. Speaker, the judiciary, in spite of enormous powers they have, appear to be fairly vulnerable. Vulnerable from political interference, vulnerable from possible abuse of office. Mr. Speaker, I would think that in the spirit of equal arms of government, it will be prudent on our part, if not for all the judges, the heads of the judiciary, they should be able to dispense justice without fear or favor, without undue influence from any political actor
Mr. Speaker, there is nothing, even the president's immunity or the governor's immunity is not absolute. Mr. Speaker, there are exceptions, and they are subject in all circumstances to the will of Parliament. They can be impeached. They can be removed, even for purposes of misconduct. So if there is anything grievous that the presiding judge has done, we can have recourse to ways of removal, which can be exercised by Parliament. That's the essence of checks and balances. So I do not think that it would be subject to a lot of abuse, because we can have a recourse to the possibility of Parliament doing the needful. So, but I believe, like Honorable Bonta said, we will need to retool it or tune it a little bit and have some exceptions and some valves for the protection of the Republic. Thank you very much.
What's your order?
Permit me, Mr. Speaker, to come under 12, Rule 4.1, and combine it with, well, I don't know the version Mr. Speaker will be taking, 61, page 61, under 12, Rule 4, sub 1, in conjunction with Rule 13, 1, sub 2. On page 79 and 60, depending on 61, depending on the version and edition you are using, Mr. Speaker. I'm on the 9th edition, sir. Page 61, that's where it contains 4, 12, 4. I'm coming to combine and double barrel effect of order 12 with 4 and order 13 to 1. I'm also asking, Mr. Speaker, among what I'm asking for, to revisit his ruling. If you permit me to read, Mr. Speaker, order 12, 4 says, on the order for the second reading of a bill being read, a motion may be made that the bill be now read for the second time. It went on to answer the question, and if the Speaker, at the end of it, shall put a question, and if the affirmative, the second time will be read. Now, just oppose this, Mr. Speaker, with order 13, which says, for alteration of Constitution, upon the debate, the Speaker shall transfer. Mr. Speaker, for the purpose of this argument, this kind of alteration is what, after the argument, transfer to the committee, standing ad hoc committees, ad hoc committee on constitutional amendment, so that the public will be able to look at it. This one fits into this. I therefore urge you to revisit and review administratively what was done by you the last sitting, and look at that. This one fits into the drafters of this. If you read the two side by side, and at the end of this debate, take this thing to the committee or other committee, so that we'll be able to do the needful and gain more insight. To otherwise will mean shutting down robust whatever I so move, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Abonta, I'm not quite sure where you're coming from, but wherever you're coming from, I totally disagree with you. My ruling yesterday is in order. I will refer you to Order 13, Rule 2, Rule 1, Sub Rule 2, during the debate on alteration to the Constitution, in other words, there shall be a debate. Correct? There shall be a debate. That was the issue yesterday. Whether we needed to debate or just send something to the committee. And then Order 13, Rule 1, Sub Rule 2, completely addresses that issue. There was a debate yesterday. The point of order was that there was no, you said by tradition, that you just refer to the committee. That's what you said. So my order remains, you are overruled. So I think, so that we move along, please, honorable colleagues, let's apply the principle, as an age-long principle, that the law should not just be used as a sword, but also as a shield. In this case, what he's trying to do is to use the law, that is the Constitution, as a shield for judges, for protection. I'll put a question. Those in support, please say aye. Those against, please say no. The ayes have it. Clerk.
Honorable Speaker, honorable members, a bill for an act to alter Section 308 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999 as amended to restrict legal proceedings against the Chief Justice of Nigeria and Justice of the Supreme Court of Nigeria, the Chief Judge of the Federal High Court, and the Chief Justice of the State High Courts and the Federal Capital Territory, and for related matters. Second reading.
Bill referred to the Committee on Special Ad Hoc Committee on Review of the Constitution. So the first order of the day is commencement of debate on the general principle of a bill for an act to provide for the establishment of Federal College of Fishery and Aquaculture, Tela, Taraba State, and for related matters, starting in the name of Honorable Abdulsalam Gambo Mubarak. Honorable members will recall that the bill was read for the first time on Tuesday, 2nd July 2020, and I invite Honorable Mubarak to move that the bill be read a second time.
Information. Mr. Speaker, I move to step down consideration of item number 21 because it has conflicted with item number 10, which has already been taken. So that, we are stepping it down for consolidation. So I so move.
We'll step down. Honorable Chairman, Business and Rules, you actually listed about 40 items for debate on today's order paper? About 40?